What is going on, Planet S.O.N family? It's your main man, JD. For those of you who don't know, I was in the military for 10 years, and here's a random story from my time in the military. So before I start the video, I just want to shout out all my subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing, guys. Thank you so much for liking my videos, and thank you so much for sharing. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you can receive notifications every single time I drop a video. And once again, thank you guys for the support. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for helping me grow the channel. I'll drop some more videos for you guys. Thanks. So after releasing a variety of videos ranging from funny stories, serious stories, to stories that I experienced firsthand, and also stories from other people who told me their stories. So after seeing what you guys prefer, I noticed that you guys like the cheese. So chisme in Spanish means gossip. So in Spanglish, we just say the cheese. Now for my non-Spanish speakers, or for my non-Spanglish speakers, here's a little dad joke you can share with your Mexican friends. So you go up to your Mexican friend and say, "Hey, what's a Mexican's favorite kind of cheese?" And they'll be like, "What?" And that's when you say, "Cheese, man." You get it? So what I noticed after creating my videos, you guys prefer the cheese. Alright, so here we go. I hope you enjoy the ride. Okay, so this story starts all the way back to the beginning of my military career. It starts all the way back to day one in boot camp. And for those of you who don't know, in order to join the Guard, the Reserve, or active duty, you have to complete boot camp for every single branch in the military. So in boot camp, I was a part of the 331st Squadron, which is also known as the Wolf Pack. There are different squadrons like the Knights, the Vipers, and the Dumb Bulldogs. Everybody hates the Bulldogs, I don't know why, but it was just fun to hate them. Now, as you can see, the base was divided into squadrons. Now, squadrons are divided by roughly 500 people. Now, within the squadron, you're divided into flights. And a flight is usually broken down from 20 to 100 people. So in boot camp, our flight was 30 to 40 guys. And those are the 30 and 40 guys that you go through boot camp with the whole time. So each flight has to do everything together. We have to eat, sleep, shower, march, exercise, everything together. We start off as civilian kids, and then we end up as disciplinarian who work together as a team. So we all sleep in one dorm room. So to teach us camaraderie, teamwork, and friendly competition, we have a brother flight that's across the hall from us. Obviously, if there were females, it'll be a sister flight, but I had a brother flight. So during our entire time in boot camp, we are in a friendly competition with our brother flight. We get graded on everything from exercising to academic scores, and basically who's better throughout the whole entire time that we're in boot camp. So it's basically a group of 30 to 40 guys against another group of 30 to 40 guys competing every day until graduation. Now, our flights were led by TIs, or training instructors in the Air Force. Other branches call them drill instructors, but it's TI for short in the Air Force. My flights instructor was Technical Sergeant Jones. My brother flights instructor, his name was Staff Sergeant Martinez. From the top of my head, I could probably only remember 10 to 15 guys from my boot camp. That's because we're always distracted, and some of us don't individually cross paths. Fortunately, with the people that you do know, you'll be able to build a strong bond with them, and it could turn into a lifelong friendship. Fortunately, I met my best friend Travis there. Shout out to my Wolfpack brother Travis. So not being able to know everybody in your flight, it's extremely hard to get to know people in your brother flight, especially since we're not allowed to go to the dorm room or even talk to them outside while we're outside of our living quarters. So after boot camp, you go to tech school in the Air Force. In the Navy, they call it A school, and in the Marines and the Army, I believe they call it MOS school. So tech school is where you learn your job that you're going to be doing in the Air Force. I came in open, so the military chose the job for me. You can switch later if you want, if you don't like the job they chose for you, but you have to wait for like 3 to 4 years. I like my job, so I did mine for 10 years. So all tech schools are located around the country. So once you graduate boot camp, you could be shipped off to California, Virginia, Mississippi, Washington State, or you could go around different cities in Texas. I was happy I didn't have to travel far. I actually stayed in San Antonio, and that's where Air Force boot camp is at. So what I had to do right after I graduated boot camp was I just got on a bus, and they just drove me like a mile away from the squadron I was in boot camp, and they just gave me a ride to tech school. Now tech school is also strict, just like boot camp. However, when you're out of school, you can hang out with friends, and you could like go around base and buy things and go to the mall. And then as weeks go on, you could earn some privileges, and you could rent a car, and you could just like drive around San Antonio and go sightsee or go to Six Flags or go to the Riverwalk. Shout out to San Antonio. I enjoyed my time there. That's a pretty cool city. So tech school was a classroom format. You had tests, homework, classmates, and obviously a teacher. So as soon as I walked into my tech school classroom, I noticed that the seating arrangements were in alphabetical order. So I had a last name that starts with a D, so my seat was all the way in the front. Fortunately, it was a corner seat. And also, the class wasn't as packed, so everybody had an empty seat on each side. So we at least had space. On the first day of tech school, I turn around and I see this tall white guy. To me, he kind of looked like the tall blue alien from Space Jam, but obviously he wasn't blue. I turn around and I introduce myself. I go, hi, my name is JD, nice to meet you. So in the military, we often ask certain questions in order to get to know these strangers who we're going to be working with for the next couple months. Just to find something in common so it could be easier for us to just get along since we're forced to work together. I mean, you have to think, we're all American, but we're from different places in the world. So we all have different cultures, we all were raised differently, and obviously we're wearing the same uniform to be a part of the same team. Why not just try our best to be friends? For example, I was a kid who was born and raised in Southern California. It was extremely common for me to go down to Mexico and go visit my grandma or go visit my family members, or during my time in high school, I would just party across the border. That was just normal for me growing up in the United States. That was just my American reality. However, I had a friend from Alabama who found it so fascinating that I would go visit my grandmother in a whole different country. She was like, wow, you go to a different country to go visit your grandma? I just go down the street and she's been living there her whole life. And I guess for me, it wasn't a big deal because that's very common for Mexican Americans growing up in Southern California. I mean, I even had friends who couldn't point out San Diego if you gave them a map of the entire state of California. I also had friends in the military who were born and raised in Maine who have told me, JD, you're the first Mexican I ever met. Now, how crazy is that? Me, at 18 years old, I was the first Mexican they ever met. I also had friends who were born and raised in American Samoa who have never been to the United States. However, even though they're American, their first introduction to the continental United States was getting yelled at the first day that they landed in boot camp. So welcome to the US, right? Another example are some of my friends who were born and raised in Puerto Rico. They're also American. However, when they landed in boot camp, they didn't know any English. So imagine being American, but you don't know any English, and you're over here getting yelled at, and you don't understand what the hell they're saying. So as you can see, we're all different. So we all just try to find something in common where we could just be friends, since, hey, we're gonna spend so much time with each other, might as well break the ice with something that we have in common and then build from there. So to go back, to establish a bond or a friendship with people who know nothing about your culture or where you're from, it's very common for military members to ask specific questions. So the common questions we ask each other in the military are, where are you from? Where are you stationed? Where have you been stationed? Where have you deployed? What's your job? And what squadron do you work for? Those are the most common questions. After we ask those questions, we usually find something in common to befriend these strangers who we're going to spend a couple months with. So as I mentioned, I turned around and I introduced myself to the tall white guy who looks like the tall blue monster from Space Jam, who was sitting right behind me. He introduces himself and he goes, hi, nice to meet you. My name is Jeff. I asked where he was from. He said he was from Iowa. To this day, I don't know anything about Iowa. And I also have never been to that state. So I kept asking those specific questions. So I asked, what squadron were you a part of when you were in boot camp? And then he said, the Wolf Pack. So I was like, yo, I was Wolfpack too. So our eyes lit up because we were just excited to find something in common with each other. So then he goes, my TI was Sergeant Martinez. And I was like, Staff Sergeant Martinez? My TI was Technical Sergeant Jones. And we were like, oh snap, we were in each other's brother flights. So I was like, yo, that's crazy. So instantly we just became friends. So that's where my friendship with Jeff started. By knowing that we landed in San Antonio the same day and we went through boot camp together in our brother flights. And obviously we didn't know each other during boot camp because we never individually crossed paths with each other. And also it's hard to pinpoint people out in boot camp because we're all wearing camouflage. But it was cool to instantly connect with somebody that you went to boot camp with. Anyway, let me share this side story that's kind of funny and you guys will get a little laugh from it. So as Jeff and I were introducing ourselves to each other, Jeff had a nice young lady who was sitting right next to him. Her name was Hillary and she was from Arkansas. It was fun getting to know her and sitting next to her for the next few months. She was cool and nice, and our favorite thing about her that me and Jeff noticed earlier on was that she was extremely gullible. And us, as immature 18-year-olds, we would take advantage of how gullible she was. We would crack so many jokes, and it's funny because she was so gullible, she really believed all our jokes. Yeah, it's kind of messed up, but hey, you know, we were kids, we were just messing around, and it was just harmless fun because she'll laugh once we would tell her our dumb stories are just jokes. So one day during the first weeks in tech school, I was just studying at my desk waiting for the lunch bell to ring. That's when I heard Jeff say my name. So I turn around and he goes, hey JD, tell Hillary that cool story about you. And confused because obviously I wasn't paying attention to their conversation, I said, what cool story? And he was like, yeah man, you know how you're from California, and I told her how you were in a movie. And I look at Hillary, and then I look at Jeff, and I was like, oh, okay. Jeff is just trying to play a joke on Hillary because she's so gullible. So quickly, I play along with the joke. So I started thinking about a popular movie, but a movie that no one has seen. I don't know if that makes sense. So she gave me a little bit of time to think. So she goes, wow, JD, you were in a movie? Which movie were you in? And I said, yeah, I was in Spy Kids 2. And in my head at the time, Spy Kids 2 was always in the commercials, but I never met anybody who's seen Spy Kids 2. Have you guys seen Spy Kids 2? I mean, to this day, I haven't seen Spy Kids 2. And Hillary was like, wow, really? That's so cool. Now, before I could answer or add on to the joke, the lunch bell rang. So we hurried up, we packed up for lunch, and then as we came back from lunch, we completely forgot about the joke. And we never mentioned it again during our time in tech school. Okay, so that was my little side story. I'll talk about it later. So Jeff and I started our friendship in school, and we started to get to know each other. He would tell me about his life back in Iowa. He told me he had a girlfriend that he's been dating for like 5 years. It was his little high school sweetheart. He showed me a picture of her, and not to be disrespectful, but she kind of looked like the crackhead from Orange is the New Black. I remember he handed me the picture, and I was like, oh, okay, bro, I see you, I see you. Because, I mean, I'm not going to tell him his girlfriend's ugly, you know what I'm saying? But she really did look like the crackhead from Orange is the New Black. And as for me, at the time, I was like 18, 19, and I didn't have a girlfriend, but I was hanging around with a young lady in tech school, but it was nothing serious. But I was happy for Jeff. I mean, he seemed very happy, and he said he was in love, so I was just happy for him that he had someone waiting for him back home. And also at the time, he wouldn't shut up about her, because that's just who he was, and hey, he was in love, so whatever. But he would talk about his girlfriend a lot, in a good way, in a good way. So I thought Jeff and I were building a good friendship, but our friendship didn't go outside the classroom. We only hung out in class, but after we left the classroom, he hung out with his group of friends, and I hung out with my friends. Not to say that we wouldn't want to hang out with each other, but I was fortunate enough to have Travis be in tech school with me. So no disrespect to Jeff, but I would just rather hang out with my best friend Travis. Since we didn't have class together, we just took advantage of spending time with each other after school or over the weekend. It was cool having Travis there because as we earned our privileges, Travis and I were able to go rent a car and go hang out around San Antonio. So it was just pretty cool being there with my best friend and just getting to know the town. We had some fun times, but those are different stories that I could use for another video. And also when Travis and I wouldn't hang out after school, he would hang out with his little young lady friend who he was hanging out with, and I would hang out with my little lady friend who I was talking to as well. So the only time that I saw Jeff outside of class was when I saw him at the chow hall eating with a new girl who just arrived with the new arrivals from boot camp. I remember this young lady, she was very good looking. She had short hair and it was jet black. I also remember her having some bright blue eyes. She looked like a mix of Mila Kunis and Uma Thurman on the cover of Pulp Fiction. So the next day in class, the first thing I asked Jeff is, yo man, who was that chick you were hanging out with last night? He said, oh, we actually just met. She's a new student. Her name is Natalie and she's 19 years old. Now, the number one thing I remembered about that conversation was that Natalie joined the military so she could get away from her 30-year-old ex-husband. And to myself, as a 19-year-old kid, I started thinking, why would a 30-year-old man divorce his beautiful 19-year-old young lady? So in my head, I was like, she's either crazy or he was abusive or cheating or beating her up or something. But either way, to me, it was just weird that she was divorced at 19. Anyway, Jeff said that he had a major crush on her, but that was actually the last conversation we had about her. So after a few months in tech school, graduation was getting closer and closer. So around our last month in San Antonio, we get a new student in our classroom. She was a nice, attractive young lady from Connecticut. Her name was Allison. So there's different rules when it comes to active duty, reserve, and guardsmen. Active duty, we have to do our time straight and we don't have any breaks. Unless we take vacation, however, we can still be called on our vacation and go back to work. So technically, active duty is literally a 24-hour-a-day job. So Allison was in the Air Force Guard and they're able to take breaks even within school. So she was able to go back to Connecticut to go hang out with her family or just take a break from school. And man, that had me wishing I was a guardsman or a reservist so so I could take breaks from school, but here I am doing my time straight like a damn sucker. So she was able to start at the same week of training as the one she stopped at to take a break and go home. So our class was currently in that week, so she was able to be a new student in our classroom and just finish off her training with us. And I remember when Allison walked in the classroom, Jeff's eyes lit up. Any memory from his girlfriend back home completely disappeared. Allison was a sweet girl. We became friends, and Jeff started hanging out with her after school. He ended up really liking Allison. It even came to the point where he updated his dream sheet so he could be stationed at a base near Connecticut. So everyone has to fill out a dream sheet. It's a sheet of 16 slots. So it's 8 overseas bases and 8 stateside bases. And obviously, if you don't want to be overseas, you could leave the overseas empty and you can just fill out the stateside, or vice versa. So on my dream sheet, I left the stateside completely empty and I filled out nothing but overseas bases just because I didn't want to be anywhere in the United States. So I had Japan first, Germany, Italy, Spain, and I don't know, some other places in Europe. And also, I mean, this is military. I might as well just take advantage and travel as much as I can. It was literally the best decision I made because for 7 out of the 10 years that I served, I spent overseas and it was amazing. I had a great time traveling and seeing the world. So during our final weeks in tech school, our instructor gave us a letter, and that letter was going to let us know where we're going to be stationed at. I opened up my letter and it said Japan, my #1 choice. I was so happy. I mean, being a 18, 19-year-old kid from San Diego, I was just so excited to have a chance to live in Japan for a few years. So everyone in class started opening their letters, and some people got Germany, some people got the UK, some people got Italy, some people got Mississippi, some people got Nebraska, and only 3 of us got the same base in Japan. It was me, this female student we had in the class, and my friend Jeff. Jeff's face said it all. He was so disappointed. He really wanted to be on the East Coast so he could be with Allison, the guard chick he just met a few weeks ago. I guess his high school sweetheart, who he would call every night on the phone, obviously didn't mean nothing to him anymore. So we were given a date for our graduation, and it was December 1st. So we had a choice after graduation. We could go straight to our first base, or we were allowed to go home for a month, and then after that, we just go report to our first base. And after months and months of training, I just wanted to go home and relax, especially it was the month of December, so obviously I just wanted to spend the holidays with my family. So I accept a month-long vacation to just go back home to San Diego and just relax and decompress. Jeff also decided to go back to Iowa and stay there for a month. Now, before we left Texas, we had to go to the ticket office to get our tickets to Japan. Now, our new base was located in northern Japan, and it was in a little town, so we needed specific instructions to try to get to our first base. However, the nice sergeants who were giving us our tickets, they gave us proper instructions, and they broke down everything we needed to do in our itinerary in order for us to get to our final destination. So what they said was, once you land in Tokyo, you're gonna see a lot of Japanese signs, but try your best to find the English ones. And fortunately, the Japanese people, they're kind enough to highlight the English ones. So it's really not that hard to make your way through an international airport. So once you land at the international airport in Tokyo, you have to take an hour-long bus ride to a smaller airport. And from that small airport, you're gonna take a local flight, and it's gonna take you straight to our base. I guess the toughest part can be just getting off that international flight and finding your way to the ticket counter where you could get the bus ticket. But at the same time, it really wasn't that hard. Just a few things you had to do. Like I said, you land at the big airport, you catch the 1-hour bus ride, and you catch a flight from the small airport. That's it. Easy. So we all go home, and December passes by real quick. I'm thankful I was able to spend time with my family during the holidays, and it was cool to hang out with my best friend Travis because he's also from my hometown. So it was cool seeing where he grew up in San Diego, and I also brought him around where I grew up in San Diego. And it was cool to spend time with him outside of a military environment, especially since I knew he was going to be stationed on the East Coast, and obviously I was going to Japan, so we weren't going to be able to hang out with each other for a while. Shout out to my boy Travis. Okay, so my flight to Japan from San Diego was scheduled on December 31st. So obviously that meant I was going to be traveling during the New Year holiday. And it was pretty cool because the airports and the airplanes were pretty empty because obviously nobody wants to travel during their holiday. So I landed in Tokyo, and it was a major culture shock. I mean, being a 19-year-old Mexican-American kid from Southern California who also hasn't traveled a lot, obviously I wasn't used to the Asian culture. Everything was 100% different, and it was just cool to experience everything. From seeing Japanese letters on signs, from hearing the Japanese language on the intercoms, and also just people around me speaking Japanese. It was just something cool to experience. So I find my luggage, and I try my best to find the bus companies. And I just started reading the signs, and it really wasn't that hard. Luckily, I was able to find the bus companies real quick. I bought my ticket for that hour-long bus ride, and I just got on the bus, and I went. And during the bus ride, I was just mesmerized. I mean, we were in downtown Tokyo, and I mean, even just being in traffic, it was just crazy to me. I mean, we were driving on the left side, the steering wheel of the bus was on the right side. So that alone was just mind-blowing to me. So I started appreciating all the architecture from the buildings all around us that we were driving by. And I was just absorbing this new experience of just being in a new country. So I get to the smaller airport, and it was not this big glamorous international airport like the one in Tokyo, but it was cool. It was just a small airport with a lot of little airplanes. But it was just easier for me because it was easier to just make my way to my gate. I check in my bags and then I make my way to my gate. So right as I see my gate, I hear somebody yell, "Yo, JD!" I look around and guess who I see? It was Jeff. Man, I was happy to see the guy because after hours of traveling, it was just nice to see a familiar face. I shook his hand, he gave me a hug, and we asked each other how we were doing. We were just excited to see each other and we just wanted to catch up. I told him I was fine and I told him I had a great time with friends and family during the holiday season. So he said right after tech school, he went straight to the jewelry store and he bought himself an engagement ring. And right after he bought that ring, he went straight to his high school sweetheart's house and he proposed to the lady right there on the spot. As he was telling me the story, he unzipped his jacket and he had a custom-made shirt. It was a white shirt with a custom picture on it. And the picture was pretty big. It was a professional picture of him and his new fiancée celebrating their engagement together. And obviously he had the picture printed huge on his shirt. They had a classic pose of him holding her and her showing off the ring on his shoulder. I mean, he seemed happy, so I just congratulated him and I was just happy for him to know that he was marrying the love of his life. So we sit down by the gate because we still have a couple hours for the flight to leave, and we just sit there and we catch up. So I asked him what was his plan since his fiancée is back in Iowa and he was moving to Japan to live there for a couple of years. So he just said he already had it all planned out. He said he already bought her ticket to Japan and she was going to arrive around Valentine's Day. So mind you, this is January 1st, so that meant she'll be in Japan around 5 to 6 weeks. And he was so happy because obviously he's going to spend Valentine's Day with his fiancée, but in the meantime, during the 5 to 6 weeks, he was going to get all the paperwork ready so they get married in the courthouse on base as soon as she arrives. So I thought it was a good idea. I mean, he seemed happy and all I could do was just congratulate him. So we get on the plane and we arrive at our new base. Now, our new base was very small. It was so small that the base shared the airport with the small town. So obviously there was only one airport to that small little town. And how it was just a little community surrounded by a lot of rice fields. And the nearest biggest city was at least 2 hours away. It was about 10 p.m. when we arrived in northern Japan. And you have to think, it was January 1st, so it was the middle of winter. And there was snow all over the flight line. Being a Southern California kid, I never felt that cold. But after traveling for 10 years, looking back, that wasn't as cold as I ever been. But it was pretty cold. So as we get off the plane, we notice it's a very, very, very small airport. Like, it only has one gate. It was probably the smallest airport I ever been at. So since there was only one gate, there was only one door to get into the airport. So as Jeff and I are walking to the luggage area, we notice a guy holding a sign saying Jeff and JD. So we grab our luggage and we introduce ourselves to the guy holding the sign. He introduced himself as Staff Sergeant Johnson. It was funny, I couldn't see his face because he was wearing a big coat and he was just all covered up. Obviously he was properly dressed for the crazy cold weather outside. So we get in his car and still I'm fascinated with the fact that we're driving on the left side. I don't know, I just thought it was pretty cool. But since the airport was on base, it literally just took us 5 to 10 minutes to get onto base and then arrive at the building where Jeff and I were going to stay. So Sergeant Johnson drives us to this big 5-story building. It was humongous. And at the same time, since it was tall, it was also long. It was so long, it needed 4 doors to get in. 1 on each end and also 2 in the middle. But the distance from end to end, it was just crazy because you go inside and it was just a long hallway. We called it the mile-long hallway because it was really that long. So to avoid to get out in the cold again, Staff Sergeant Johnson just gave us 2 key cards. Similar to hotel key cards. And Sergeant Johnson, all covered up with the scarves and stuff, he says, both of your rooms are on the bottom floor. The room numbers are on the key cards. I'm going to send someone to pick you up tomorrow. Be ready by 06:30. So we grab our luggage from his car and we just run in the building to avoid the cold wind because it was so cold. So we get in at one end of the building and we start reading our key cards. Mine said number 1. So fortunately, we looked to our left and that was room number 1. So fortunately, we entered from the correct side because my room was right there. So we opened the door and it was pretty nice. It looked like a nice studio apartment. It was one big room and it had a fridge, a bed, a couple dressers, and I was happy to see that I had my own bathroom with my own shower because for the last couple months during training, I had to share my bathroom and my shower shower with roommates. So we drop off my luggage and we check out the number on Jeff's room key. It said number 46, so we close the door to my room. We find his room at the other end of the long hallway. We walk in and it's the same format, same layout. Big room, bathroom, bed, fridge, dresser. And since it was cold outside, it was extremely cold in our empty bedrooms. So he starts looking around and he sees a heater on the wall. So he turns it on and I'm happy to see that it works really fast. So it starts heating up, and since it was late, I say goodnight and I tell him I'll see him in the morning. So I walk back to my room and the first thing I did was turn the heater knob. I was thinking I'm just gonna go in the bathroom, take a hot shower, and during that time, the heater is going to warm up my room. So I take my shower and I open the bathroom door and I feel this cold air just hit me. So I start messing with the heater and I figure out that it was completely broken. So I look at the bed and it had the thinnest blanket in the world. So I was like, no heater and a thin blanket, that's not a good combination. Fortunately, it was the winter time, so I packed a lot of hoodies and sweaters. So what I did, I just put on like 9 hoodies and 7 pairs of jeans with like 10 socks. So I laid on the bed, I pulled over that thin little blanket, and since it was so cold, I could see my breath every time I exhaled, so I just saw my breath until I fell asleep. So I woke up, got ready, and right at 6:30, I hear a knock on my door. I opened the door, and it was a skinny little white guy. He was cool. He looked like the weird guy from the movie Road Trip, you know, the guy that killed the cheetah. And it was funny because as I got to know the guy, he really was exactly like that weird guy from Road Trip. So we walked down the mile-long hallway to go get Jeff, and then all 3 of us just make our way to my new squadron. So as we're driving, I'm just enjoying the view because of all the beautiful snow. It was so white, and plus it was kind of a long drive. We had to drive through fields and woods, and it was just something nice to see because everything was all white covered with snow. So we get to the squadron, and I finally have a chance to see Sergeant Johnson's face. It was just funny meeting somebody physically, but you don't know what their face looks like until the second time you see him. So Sergeant Johnson takes Jeff and I to his office. He tells us to sit down because the entire week we're just going to be filling out paperwork in his office. Sergeant Johnson's office was pretty wide, and it had space for 8 desks. And there was 8 sergeants who sat in the office. And it had a front counter and also like a little lobby area with a couple of chairs. And that's where Jeff and I sat as we filled out paperwork. So as we were filling out paperwork, we hear someone laughing in the hallway. This person was hella loud. So that loud person walks into the office and he draws everyone's attention because he was so loud. So Sergeant Johnson was like, damn man, why are you laughing so loud? So that loud person starts making his way to a desk. I guess he was a sergeant who worked there. So he starts telling Sergeant Johnson the funny story, but he tells it loud enough for the whole room to hear. So the loud sergeant goes, remember that girl who couldn't find the bus company at the international airport? And Sergeant Johnson was like, yeah, what happened to her? Where's she at? So then he goes, man, so once she figured out where the bus companies were, it was too late and the bus companies already closed. So since she couldn't get on the bus ride, she obviously missed her flight at the smaller airport so she could fly into base. So I guess there was another troop who was supposed to fly in with us. However, she got stuck at the international airport in Tokyo. So when she knew that she was going to miss her second flight, she got scared and froze up. She didn't know what to do. And she was too scared to call the base to let a sergeant know that she made a little mistake. So she decided to sleep at the airport and thought she could just sleep on a bench next to where the bus companies were at and wait until the bus companies open again in the morning. Little did she know that the international airport also closed. So she wasn't able to stay inside the airport. So she was forced to take all her luggage to the sidewalk and just sleep on top of her luggage on the sidewalk like some homeless person. Fortunately, it wasn't as cold in Tokyo as it was in northern Japan, but still, she had to stay there for a lot of hours. She might as well just catch a taxi to go to a hotel room, but she was just too scared to leave the airport. And on top of that, she was traveling in full dress uniform. Some troops think it's a good idea to travel to your first base in full blues. It's the fancy uniform with all the shiny stuff, with the medals, the ribbons, the badges, and everything. I mean, just wearing the uniform is very uncomfortable. I can only imagine how uncomfortable this girl was sleeping in her full service dress on the sidewalk in the middle of Tokyo. So when she woke up in the morning, she didn't think it was a good idea to catch that hour-long bus ride to the next airport because she thought, well, I already missed the flight. Why go to the other airport when I already missed my flight? So what she did was she got back in the airport and she started seeing signs. So she noticed a sign that said the name to the nearest biggest city to our base. But like I said, that nearest biggest city is 2 hours away from base. So she looked around and she saw that there was a train going to that big city. So what could have been a short flight to the base turned into a long train ride to a city 2 hours away from base. So as she was transferring trains on her trip to northern Japan, she finally got the courage to call base and call that loud sergeant to let him know what happened, and that's how he knew the story and just told everybody. So that loud sergeant turns to Jeff and I and asks sarcastically, he goes, "Hey, was it really hard to catch that hour-long bus ride to catch your flight at the smaller airport?" Then we go, "No, sir." Then he turns to the office all frustrated and says, "See, it's not that hard. Why do I always get stuck with dumb troops?" So everyone's just laughing, and Jeff and I turn to each other and we're like, "Damn, who the hell is this dumb troop?" And we both knew it wasn't that hard, and we're like, "Man, this girl's an idiot." So the loud sergeant leaves all mad, and everybody's just laughing at him because now he has to drive 2 hours away just to go pick up that dumb troop. So after we fill out some paperwork, Sergeant Johnson drives us to the store on base so we could buy some necessities. So on our way to the store, I tell Sergeant Johnson, "Hey, Sergeant Johnson, my heater's broke." And he goes, "Well, you better buy some blankets, because if he puts in a work order for the heater, it's gonna take at least 6 weeks for somebody to fix it, because the building doesn't belong to our squadron. So that means the maintenance isn't high on the priority list. Also, those rooms were temporary, so he knew that we were gonna move out in less than a month. So to him, it didn't make sense to put in a work order if I was just gonna move out within a couple of weeks. So he just said it'll be easier for me to buy a lot of blankets and just suck it up for a couple weeks." So when we got to the store, I bought like 10 thick blankets, and that's how I kept warm for a couple of weeks in my frozen room. Anyway, the next day, we were in Sergeant Johnson's office again, filling out paperwork. So everyone in the office started hearing that loud sergeant in the hallway. And as we heard his voice getting closer and closer to the office, the energy in the office just shifted. I don't know, it was kind of weird. It was just this awkward feeling around the office. All of a sudden, a female troop who I've never seen walks into the office. My initial impression was that this girl kind of looked a little funny. I mean, not to be mean, but she just wasn't easy on the eyes. To me, she kind of looked like a mix between a Cabbage Patch Kid and Linda Blair in full Exorcist makeup. Hey, that's exactly what she looked like. Also, around that time, we would wear the old school black and green camouflage uniforms. They were called BDUs. And these uniforms were sharp. You had to wear them with the crease all nicely pressed. And also, you had to shine your boots every day. However, her uniform would look all messy. Dirty, dusty, wrinkled, looking like she just pulled it out of the laundry basket. Plus, her hair was all messed up. This girl just looked like a hot mess. So she scans the room and sees Jeff. So she runs up to Jeff and gives him a big hug. She's all like, "Hey, how are you?" And Jeff was sitting right in front of me, so her back was towards me. And he's all like, "Hey, I'm fine." You could just tell Jeff felt so awkward. So she sat right next to him, and as they sit down, Jeff is like, "Hey, this is my friend JD." So she turns to me and says, "Hey, nice to meet you. My name is Peggy." So I asked them, "How do you guys know each other?" So Peggy said that her and Jeff met at a function back in Texas. So you know how I mentioned how Jeff and I wouldn't hang out after class while we were in tech school? Well, apparently Jeff went to a function, and that's where he met Peggy. And Peggy goes, "Yeah, I was just there with one of my ex-boyfriends who I had during tech school. But you know, he was just one of many." And I was like, "Okay, Pippin, I see you." So apparently she was dating a few guys while we were in Texas. So then she asked us, "Hey, was it hard for you guys to get here too?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" She says, "Well, I had to take the train here." And I was like, "Oh, that was you?" I look at Sergeant Johnson and he's like, "Don't say anything." And Jeff and I were like, "No, we took the bus and went to the smaller airport." We were just trying to play it off just to not make her feel bad or something. So she told us that she ended up getting a room in the building right next to ours, which was convenient for all the sergeants because, well, we all had to carpool with each other. So Peggy just ended up talking the whole day. And by the end of the day, I was just annoyed. I just wanted to get away from this chick because she just wouldn't stop talking. So on our ride back to our dorms after work, Jeff mentioned that he was hungry and he wanted to go to dinner at the chow hall. And like I said, I just wanted a break from Peggy. And since she already invited herself to go eat with Jeff, I was like, "Nah, bro, I'm good. I'll see you guys tomorrow." So Peggy and Jeff start making their way to the chow hall, and I start walking to the base food court. The food court was a long walk, and you had to go through different buildings. So as I'm walking to the food court, I see a group of 10 guys in a gazebo about half a block away. So as I'm walking, I hear a guy from the gazebo go, "Yo, JD!" I turn around, I'm like, who the hell's calling me? I was like, I don't know anybody here. Mind you, it was just my second day in Japan and I didn't know anybody there. Plus from that distance, I couldn't really recognize anybody. So I just waved back and said, "Yo, what up?" And then I just kept walking. So then they yell again, "Yo, JD, come through." All the guys at the gazebo were like, "Yo, come over." They were all in their camouflage uniform. And I thought it was funny how they could recognize me since I was also in uniform, Plus I had a big jacket on. So because I was curious, I was like, I might as well just go say what's up since apparently they know me. So as I'm getting closer and closer, I'm trying to recognize these guys, but none of them look familiar. They seemed like cool guys. They were just out there barbecuing and drinking beer. And as I got close enough, the guy who originally yelled out my name started walking toward me. So he shakes my hand, he embraces me, and he was like, yo man, what's up? Where you going? Still, at this point, I didn't know who the hell this man was. And I tell him how I'm going to the food court. So he goes, nah man, why don't you stay here with us? We're barbecuing, we got some burgers, some hot dogs, some sides, some drinks. Just hang out with us. So I start shaking everybody's hand and I don't recognize anybody. However, they seemed so happy to see me. So then they started staring at me, waiting for me to answer if I was gonna hang out with them or not. So respectfully, I was like, how do you guys know me? The first guy was like, yeah man, we went to tech school together. I was like, for real? I was very surprised because I didn't recognize anybody. So they go, yeah man, you were in Hillary's class. Confused, I was like, Hillary? You mean Hillary from Arkansas? In my head, I was like, the girl who sat next to Jeff in class? And they were like, yeah man, she told us all about you. Confused, I was like, why the hell would this girl talk about me? And what did she say? So then they go, yeah man, she told us how you were in movies and how you were in Spy Kids too. And I was like, what? So apparently after Jeff and I forgot to tell this gullible chick that we were just joking about the whole movie thing, during our months in tech school, she was pointing me out to people from a distance and telling these people, yo, that's JD, he was in Spy Kids too. And apparently her group of friends really thought that I was in a movie. I couldn't believe Hillary was spreading this rumor. So I started cracking up because I thought it was so hilarious that these guys thought that I was really in Spy Kids too. And remember, like I said, I thought that this movie was a popular movie that no one has ever seen. So I asked them, have you guys ever seen Spy Kids too? So all of them were like, no, we never seen Spy Kids too. So I had to break it to them. And I was like, no, man. And I was like, yo, man, I wasn't in Spy Kids too, man. We were just joking. We were just playing with her. And apparently she just believed the joke. I'm sorry about that, guys. So everybody just started laughing and I took them up on their offer to hang out and I chilled with them for a few hours and just ate a couple burgers. I'm glad they called me over because I made a couple of friends in that group and it was just cool to hang out with them during my time in Japan. But it was just funny to tell other people of how we initially met. Oh, that crazy gullible Hillary. So after I ate, I said bye and started heading back to my room. As I'm getting ready to go to sleep, I hear a knock on my door. I open up the door and it's Jeff. He comes in my room and he goes, damn bro, it's so cold in here. And I'm all like, I know, right? So I shake his hand, I'm like, yo man, what's up? So he gives me a blank stare. And I was like, yo man, you good? What's going on? And there was this awkward long pause. And he goes, bro, I slept with Peggy. Yo, this idiot slept with Peggy. We both started cracking up because man, this dude's an idiot. I was like, Peggy? Come on, man. Peggy? So after the hilarious initial reaction, I just embraced him and I congratulated him because, well, my boy just got some booty. And that's what friends do. So to find out the cheese, I'm like, well, what happened? So then he goes, I don't know. We just went to eat. She invited me back to her room. And I don't know. It just happened. So we kept cracking up because, man, Peggy. And he mentions, well, it wasn't even good. I mean, my fiance's better. I don't know, man. I mean, at this point, I'm like, this guy's just crazy. So I asked, so is this just a one-time thing or are you gonna keep doing it? And then he goes, hell nah, I'm in love with my fiance and I'm not gonna leave my fiance for Peggy. That was just, you know, a mistake. And I was like, hey man, well, whatever, do what you do. I mean, you're grown, so do what makes you happy, I guess. So then he asked, well, what do you think I should do? And I was like, well, what you mean, man? And then he's like, well, should I tell my fiance? So now I'm confused because this man just had sex with Peggy, sober. And now he's feeling confused and guilty and wants me to help him decide if he should tell his fiance or not. I mean, what am I supposed to tell him? So I ask him, I'm like, well, what do you want me to say, man? And he goes, well, I feel really guilty and I'm debating if I should just tell my fiance. I mean, do you think I should tell my girl? And I was like, so you said it was only a one-time thing, right? And he goes, hell yeah. And I was like, well, it was just a mistake. And you said it was just a one-time thing. Just keep it to yourself and never do it again. I mean, realistically, how could she know? Okay, so let's be real. He is wrong for cheating on his fiance. However, the action has already been done. He messed up. So now the best thing we could do is just find a solution. And I was like, well, the only thing you have to worry about is probably an STD, but you just had a one-night stand with Peggy. So I'm assuming you used the condom, right? And he looks at me like a deer in headlights. And he's all like, no. I was like, oh, bro, you straight raw dog Peggy? And he's all, I'm allergic to latex. Still, bro, Peggy? Peggy. Feeling ashamed, he's all, I know, man, it's horrible. Well, at this point, all we have to do is hope that Peggy is clean. And if she isn't, well, Jeff has 6 weeks for his fiancée to come to Japan. So we're thinking if anything pops up, he could at least try to clear it up before his fiancée gets to Japan. Then, holding himself, he's all like, damn, I know like 3 guys who slept with her back in Texas. And yeah, all 3 of those dudes look dirty. At this point, I just didn't want to go down the rabbit hole of worrying about something we can't control. Because as we all know, participating in certain activities with certain people can make you lose yourself in your thoughts and start creating things in your head that don't exist. So as a friend, to try to help him put his mind at ease, I was like, look, man, you're good. Just don't do it again. And he's all like, yeah, you're right, man. It won't happen again. And I was like, bro, you don't have to promise me anything. I mean, you're a grown man. Just do whatever you think is right. Especially if you're going to be feeling guilty about your actions. I mean, what else can I say? What would you do? So we said goodnight and he made his way down the mile-long hallway and I saw him in the morning. The next day, we're in Sergeant Johnson's office again. So Sergeant Johnson tells all 3 of us, Jeff, Peggy, and I, that he enrolled us in a class called FTech. FTech stands for First Term Airman Course. It's a 2-week-long course for all the new airmen who just arrived from tech school. And the course helps us integrate in the real Air Force. Since technically we're not in training anymore. You know, from boot camp to tech school, well, all that is done. So now, like I said, we just need to integrate into the real Air Force. So FTech goes in depth about the functioning Air Force. In our case, it taught us about the Japanese culture as well. The course also taught us about the cultures of the airmen who joined the Air Force with us. Getting to know the culture of my fellow peers was probably the toughest part of the class. As I stated, I'm a kid from Southern California. We're just a salad bowl of mixed cultures. So I'm used to hanging around people who are not just Mexican American. Here in Southern California, we have it all. All different races, all different religions, from all over the world. So that was nothing new to me. However, I couldn't understand the culture of some airmen who grew up in the South. Now, I'm gonna use this example because it actually happened, but it was just so weird, I just have to share it with you guys. So while in the FTAC course, there were a few people who grew up in southern states who were arguing that black people were good at sports because white people trained them and bred them to become stronger and faster people during slavery. And they said that was the main reason why black people were so good at sports today. So normal people in the class, we really had to sit there and look at these idiots tell us about how they believe something so stupid. However, that was the point of the class. It opened our eyes and allowed everybody to know that these are the people who we are going to be serving with. And even though their thoughts are stupid and their point of view is very ignorant, we still have to learn how to put that aside and remain a team, because these people could be the people who we go to war with. And regardless of personal beliefs or how we were brought up, all of us still have to know that we have to trust each other and protect each other, because at the end of the day, all of us have U.S. Air Force over our hearts on our uniform. And technically, no matter what we believe or where we're from, all of us are just here for one cause, and that's just to serve our country. But still, it highlighted a lot of ignorance in the military, but hey, that's just the way it is in America. I mean, that class was just something else. Anyway, Sergeant Johnson tells us that we're going to start FTAC on Monday. So we're like, cool, can't wait. Plus, the classrooms were right across the street from our dorms, so it was more convenient for us. No one had to pick us up, and all we had to do was just cross the street. So it's now the 4th day of our first week in Japan. Sergeant Johnson drops us off at our dorms, and since we were off work, Peggy was like, hey guys, you guys want to go see what's off base? To actually see Japan and be amongst the Japanese people? At this point, we haven't done anything like that. I mean, since we were so busy filling out paperwork with Sergeant Johnson, plus we were still trying to get used to the time change since we were so jet lagged, and none of us had a car. Now, anybody who has been stationed in northern Japan at my first base, they could tell you that the front gate was a good mile from the rest of the base. Then, after you get to the base, you still have to walk to our dorms. So that's a good couple miles just to reach the front gate. And obviously, once you get out the front gate, you're gonna keep walking miles just to explore. I was excited. I really wanted to go. Plus, like you know, as a Southern California kid, I wasn't used to knee-high snow. So walking down a Japanese neighborhood in knee-high snow, that was just an experience I was looking forward to. Jeff was a little hesitant, and after we convinced him to go, privately he told me that he didn't want to go because he just wanted to stay home so he could just call his fiancée back home. Obviously, that's understandable because Peggy wouldn't leave him alone, and he knew since it was a long walk, Peggy and I would take a long time to come back, and he could have some free time to himself so he could just call his fiance. So after convincing him, we make our way to the front gate and we just go sightsee. So we make it off base, and it was cool to see signs with Japanese letters everywhere. However, no matter where you go in the world, if you ever see an American installation, you always see the same type of businesses off base. You have bars, fast food restaurants, car shops, car dealerships, tattoo shops, and you always see prostitutes walking around the dark alleys near base. So the first thing we see are bars and a tattoo shop that had a big sign, and it was called the Magic Needle. Later on, I found out I had a nickname. It was called the Dirty Needle, but that's just another story. So Peggy was like, hey, let's go check it out. I want to get a new tattoo. I was up for it, so I was like, yeah, let's go. Why not? The tattoo shop was on the second floor, so obviously we had to go up a stairway. Now, the way these buildings were made, each stairway was just a one-person stairway, so it was just very tight. So as we're following each other up the stairs, we get to the door, and it's made out of bamboo and paper. It felt so delicate, I didn't even want to touch it. Plus, it opened out, and with the tight stairway, you could barely get through the door. So we go in the shop, and per Japanese custom, we had to take off our shoes, and we were provided with house slippers to put on while we walk around the tattoo shop. It was different, but it was cool because it was just a different experience. The tattoo shop was very small, and it was ran by a tatted up Japanese guy named Fumi. It was cool getting to know that guy for the next few years. He was a pretty cool guy. Shout out to Fumi at the Magic Needle. So he greeted us, and Peggy made the appointment. Peggy wasn't sure what she wanted at the moment. However, she reserved the spot for next Thursday. And Fumi was cool. Even though Peggy wasn't sure what she wanted, he still allowed her to reserve the spot, but he wanted her to come back before the appointment so she could show him what she wanted and he could work on the piece before she gets there next Thursday. So like I said, she makes her appointment, and after that, we just go downstairs and continue exploring. So we continue walking, and we see a restaurant with the menu outside its door. I was excited because finally I get to have a chance to eat an authentic Japanese meal. Plus, it felt like a home-cooked meal because the restaurant was ran by an older Japanese couple. The husband cooked and the wife took care of the customers. Plus, the couple lived upstairs from the restaurant, so that made it a better experience because of the authenticity. So we ate, and then we just kept walking. So as we were walking back to base, we're like 2 blocks away from the front gate. So as we're walking closer to the gate, Peggy spots a Japanese sex shop in an alley right near the front gate. Sexuality is very funny in Japan. After living in Japan for a couple of years, it allowed me to understand that the Japanese people are freaks on the low. I mean, yes, the Japanese culture is amazing. These people are extremely respectful, and I always said, if the world had the same culture as Japan, the world would be a better place. However, the Japanese people are down low freaks. For example, I'm assuming everybody watching this has gone on at least one road trip in the United States. So it's safe to say that we all know no matter what highway you're on, you're going to see some rest stops. And at these rest stops, it's common to see restrooms, gas stations, vending machines with snacks and drinks. And at bigger rest stops, you find restaurants and maps with information about the road and also the local sightseeing area. That's common, right? I mean, to us Americans, that's normal. Now in Japan, if you go on a long highway trip, you can find small rest stops with a couple parking spaces right in front of 3 vending machines. One vending machine has Japanese snacks, one vending machine has Japanese drinks, and one vending machine has sex items. And I'm talking all kind of items. You have condoms, all different kind of sex toys in all different shapes and sizes, underwear made out of candy, and also leather whips. So you could literally be traveling in the middle of nowhere, but you could still get yourself ready for the orgy you're going to in the next town over. I mean, who puts that stuff out there? I don't care what anybody says. Japanese people are freaks on the low. So anyway, Peggy wanted to go into the sex shop. And me as a 19-year-old kid, of course I wanted to go check it out. So we go inside the store, and I purposely try to stay to myself because the last thing I wanted to see were the items that Peggy was buying for herself. I mean, forgive me guys, no disrespect, but Peggy wasn't an attractive woman. Or at least, she just wasn't my type, and I didn't want to think about her that way. So as I was looking around and Peggy was shopping on the other side of the store, Jeff ran up to me and showed me 2 items. All excited, he's like, yo, what do you think? So one was a female blow-up doll, and the second item was a silicone mold of a female's flower. Flower. I was like, well, that's not my thing, but hey man, do what you do. He said, yeah man, I think I should buy these things. I think they'll help me not cheat on my fiance. Me thinking, what the hell? So as a supportive friend, I was like, yeah man, whatever helps you out. So happy as a kid with a couple of new toys, he runs straight to the register and buys both items. Fortunately, Peggy was already done paying for her items while Jeff and I were having that conversation. So I didn't have a chance to look at her little pleasure items. So after Jeff paid for his items, we made our way back to base, and then we got to the dorms, and then we just called it a night. So the next day was our first Friday in Japan, and Sergeant Johnson sent different people to pick us up individually since Peggy, Jeff, and I had to go to different buildings to just fill out some paperwork. So the whole day, I didn't see Jeff or Peggy because we all had to be in different buildings. So after work, I go back to my dorm, and as I'm taking my boots off, I hear a knock at my door. I open the door, and Jeff lets himself in. He goes, "Damn, bro, it's so cold in here." And at this point, I'm like, "Bro, you already know I live in an icebox. Just shut up about it." So I'm like, "What's up, bro? How you doing? How was your day?" So he looks at me and he goes, "I did it again." And I was like, "No, you didn't." Shamefully, he goes, "Yeah, man, I slept with Peggy again." So I was like, "What happened to your blow-up doll? Or your silicone beaver?" Beaver. And he was like, "I know, man, but Peggy started pulling out the things that she bought and she wanted me to use them on her. And one thing led to another, and well, I did it again. I slept with Peggy." So at this point, I'm like, "Whatever, man. You just like the chick." In denial, he was like, "No, man, no, you crazy. I'm in love with my fiance. Get out of here. Get out of here." So at this point, I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. You don't have to lie to me. And now guilty, he goes, "No, man, I'm so sorry." And I'm all like, "You don't have to apologize to me. You're a grown man. You know what you're doing. Whoever you decide to sleep with, that's your business." He's like, "Yeah, man, but you're not going to tell my fiance when she gets here on Valentine's Day, right?" And I'm all like, "Bro, at the end of the day, that's your business." And he goes, "All right, man, cool. Thanks, man. I appreciate it." And I was like, "Whatever, man. Do what you got to do." So then he goes, "Hey man, Peggy and I wanted to know if you wanted to watch a movie tomorrow night." Me not having plans, I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? Let's go watch a movie." He goes, "All right, man, I'll see you tomorrow night. Be in my room around 7. I was like, "All right, man, I'll see you later." So the next night, I make my way down that mile-long hallway to Jeff's room. So I knock, he opens the door, he greets me, and then I see that Peggy's already there. He stops me as soon as he closes the front door, and he opens up his closet, and he brings out his fake female hoo-ha. Hoo-ha. Then he goes, "Bro, this thing is awesome. The only thing that sucks about it is cleaning it after." And I'm like, "Bro, I don't care. Put that away. That's disgusting." He laughs and he puts it away and he just goes to the bathroom. So I walk in and I noticed that the heater was working. So I was all happy that I was able to take off my coat in the building, since I always have something on when I'm in my freezing room. So Jeff is in the bathroom and I walk into the room and I saw Peggy sitting on the bed. She stands up and she gives me a hug. And since she saw Jeff show me his plastic female fur burger, she goes, "Hey, do you want to see what I got from the sex shop?" Before I had time to answer, she goes into the drawer and she gets out this silver bean looking thing attached to a wire, and it had a motor at the end. Then she turns around, goes back in the drawer, and swings out this big, large dildo. This thing was huge. So as she grabbed the dildo, Jeff was coming out the bathroom. So Jeff grabs the little bean thing, he puts it on the concrete floor, and he puts the motor on high. So all of a sudden, Jeff had the bean thing jumping all over the room. And yes, although it was funny, I did not come over to see their little toys. And me thinking to myself like, man, these people are crazy. So to change the subject on these crazy little freaks, I asked them, "Yo, y'all excited to start F-Tech on Monday?" They were all like, "Hell yeah." Because I mean, we were just tired of filling out paperwork. I mean, yeah, it's easy, but we were just tired of it. So they put their toys away and we started to watch a movie. We ended up watching the movie Hostel. That was my first time watching it. It was actually a dope movie. I really like that movie. That's actually one of my favorite movies. If you haven't had a chance to watch Hostel, it's a pretty cool movie. I recommend it. So the movie ended, I said bye, and then I go back to my little icebox. And I noticed that Peggy stayed, but at this point, she was already kind of living with him. But hey, that's their business, right? So Monday came, and I woke up with my room being extra icy. I opened up the curtains, and I couldn't see nothing outside because the windows were covered with snow. So I get ready, and I step outside. The snow was up to my hips. I've never seen anything like that. Fortunately, they were plowing all night. We could at least cross the street to walk to the F-Tech building. So I make my way to the F-Tech building, and I was so excited because it was my first day of F-Tech. I was just excited for a different experience. And I was also excited for the F-Tech course. Sergeant Johnson talked to us a little bit about it, and I was just excited to learn something new. So I get to the building, and fortunately, it had a heating system. And me, living in my icebox, obviously I was so happy. And as I'm waiting in the little lobby area, I see Jeff and Peggy walk in. So I greet them and we just wait in the lobby with all the other students that are arriving. So all we're doing now is just waiting and also watching all the new students come in the door. And these students are going to be our classmates for the next couple weeks. And fortunately, these students are also from different squadrons on base. So as we're getting to know each other, we're also going to learn about different jobs in the Air Force since every individual has a different job. So I thought that was pretty cool because it allowed us to learn what other people do in the Air Force. So as we're waiting, a master sergeant who ended up being our instructor, he just comes into the lobby. He just tells us to wait and that class will start soon. So right before the master sergeant opens the doors for the class, the students who smoke were sneaking into the lobby. I don't know how cigarette smokers do it. I mean, it was freezing outside with hip-high snow and you guys will still go out there and get your fix. I mean, I don't know how you guys do it. Y'all crazy. So as the smokers start coming in, Peggy sees a girl that she recognizes. So Peggy, all excited, she runs up to her and gives her a big hug. And both of them were so excited to see each other. So Peggy brings her over to Jeff and I so she could introduce her. So I'm like, hi, my name is JD. Nice to meet you. And she goes, hi, my name is Helga. Helga seemed nice. She was a little older than Peggy, Jeff, and I. Like I mentioned, at the time, we were like 18, 19. Helga joined the military late. She got in right at the cutoff age of 26. So since all of us joined around the same time, we all had the same rank. So physically, Helga wasn't easy on the eyes. She was 5'5", and she also looked like the actress Rhea Perlman from Cheers. Also, those cigarettes weren't helping her out. I thought they were taking a toll on her since she surprised me when she said she was 26 because she really looked like she was in her mid-30s. The number one thing I always remembered about her, I don't know, even to this day, I still remember that she had a black rotten canine tooth. And I don't know, that just stood out to me and I always remembered that about her. But Helga was pretty cool. So after Peggy introduced us, they just ended up chatting while we all just waited in the lobby. So the master sergeant opens the doors and he lets all the students in the classroom. So all four of us decide to sit next to each other. So the tables in the classroom were lined up in 3 rows and each table had 3 seats. So Peggy, Jeff, and I sat in one table with Jeff in the middle and Helga sat right behind Peggy at the table behind us. So our first day of class ended and Helga invited all 3 of us to hang out in a room later that night. She said she had beer and she said she was going to order pizza for all 4 of us so we could just hang out in her room and eat while we watch a movie. So Helga said that she lived on the 2nd floor in the same building where Jeff and I stayed. So all 3 of us agreed to go. And me, well, obviously I had no plans and I wanted to avoid freezing in my little igloo. So I was just excited to hang out. I mean, why not? So Helga asked us to be there by 7. And my Mexican self running on colored people time, I wasn't even ready by 7:30. So by 8 o'clock, I hear a knock at my door. I open the door and it was Jeff. As he comes in, he goes, bro, it's so cold in your room. At this point, I'm just ignoring it. So he says, yo man, we've been waiting for you. The pizza's already here and we don't want to start the movie without you. And then he says that Peggy and Helga have been drinking for a while. I guess they got there early and Peggy and Helga were just drinking the whole time. And apparently they were hella drunk. So as I'm laughing, I just grab my coat and we make our way down the mile-long hallway. So we walk upstairs to Helga's room. We knock and she opens up the door and we just go into the room. I noticed that her room was half the size of my room. Apparently, the first floor had the bigger rooms. And fortunately, I didn't need my coat because her heater worked. It was nice and toasty in there. So as I walk into the room, I noticed that the girls were a little drunk. Helga greets me and she hands me a Corona. She offers me some pizza and sits down on her bed next to Peggy. She also had a recliner in her room and Jeff sat down on the recliner while being the DJ and controlling the music. The TV was also on, but it was on mute. So I put my coat on her bed and I lean on the dresser while I'm sipping my Corona. Then Helga reaches over to grab her beer. She takes a sip, then she puts the bottle right next to the bed. As Helga comes up after leaving the beer right next to her bed, she grabs Peggy and she leans in and starts making out with her. Me as a 19-year-old kid, I'm like, okay, go ahead girls. So as they're kissing, they start taking off their shirts. So as their shirts come off, all of a sudden they start taking off their bras. And I'm over here just watching and sipping my Corona. And yes guys, this is Peggy and Helga. We all know these girls aren't good looking, but any straight man can vouch for me when I say this. Titties are titties. So as Helga's flapjacks and Peggy's watermelons are flopping everywhere, I turn to Jeff, who I completely forgot was in the room, and his face was bright red. Then, as soon as I noticed his enraged face, oh man, he yelled, stop! Then the girl stopped in shock that Jeff had that reaction. So Jeff separated them, then he grabbed Peggy's shirt and threw it in her face. As Jeff did that, Helga grabbed her stuff and she just ran to the bathroom. So as soon as Peggy put on her shirt, Jeff grabbed Peggy by the arm and he said, all of us have to leave. I was in shock about what just happened, But I was just laughing as Jeff just dragged Peggy out the room. So there I was, alone in the room. Jeff dragged Peggy out, and Helga was scared in her bathroom. So I just chugged the rest of my Corona, and I set it on the counter, grabbed my coat, and as I was walking out, I knocked on the bathroom and said, "Good night, Helga," and I left the room. As soon as I got in the hallway, I heard Jeff and Peggy arguing in the stairway. So I just took my time walking down the stairs so Jeff could take Peggy into his room and I wouldn't be mixed up in that awkward argument. So as soon as I heard his door slam, I just made my way down the mile-long hallway into my icy fortress. I laughed the whole way and I just went to bed. So the next few days we went to school and everything was normal. None of us really talked about what happened that night. I guess we kind of forgot about it and just ignored it. But during school, I started noticing whenever Peggy went on a break or when Peggy went to the bathroom, Jeff started flirting with Helga. I personally didn't care. I mean, why would I hate on my homie just doing his thing? So Thursday came and Peggy and Jeff were gonna go together to Peggy's tattoo appointment. I didn't want to go because I just wasn't in the mood to walk all those miles to the front gate just to watch Peggy get a tattoo. My plans were just to hang out in my icebox and just listen to Tupac all night. So I'm in my icy fortress with my headphones on, listening to the Me Against the World album. Then all of a sudden I hear someone pounding in my door. And you know this person was pounding real hard since obviously it was so loud I could hear it with my headphones on. So I open the door and it's Peggy. She lets herself in and she's like, "Oh my God, JD, it's so cold in here." I'm like, "I know." So she asks, "You didn't hear me knocking?" I'm like, "My bad, I had my headphones on, what's up?" She goes, "Well, I can't find Jeff and we're supposed to go to the tattoo shop together." And I was like, "Well, he's not here." I asked, "Have you checked his room?" She said she already checked and she was also pounding on his door like crazy. Since no one answered, she figured that he'll be at the chow hall, but she didn't find him there either. So I asked, "Have you checked Helga's room?" She's like, "No, but can you go with me?" I forgot what room it was. Annoyed, I was like, "Okay." Plus, I had all my clothes on, ready to go outside, since I can't take the layers off in my icy room. So we walk down the mile-long hallway, and we go upstairs to Helga's room. So we get to Helga's door, and I look at Peggy, and I'm like, "Well, aren't you gonna knock?" Hesitant, she goes, "Okay." So she gives the door a little love tap. All of a sudden, through the door, you could hear a little shuffling in the room. I look at Peggy, and I'm assuming she also heard the loud shuffling. We wait a little bit, and no one answers the door. So then, as we're looking at the door waiting for someone to answer, I see the light from the peephole all of a sudden go dark. And then all of a sudden the light reappears in the peephole. So I'm thinking, bruh, someone's in there. I look at Peggy and she didn't say anything. So then I ask, "How are you gonna come to my room, pounding on my door like you the LAPD, but only give a little love tap to a door where your man might be?" She looks at me and says, "He's probably not in there." So to keep up with these girls' delusions, I ask, "So what do you want to do now?" Nicely, she goes, "Do you want to go to the tattoo shop with me?" I'm like, hell no. I start walking back to my room and she begs me to go with her as I'm walking down the mile-long hallway and as I'm entering my little icy fortress. Right as I'm getting to my room, I'm like, "Bye, Peggy, I'll see you later." She all of a sudden gives me the little puppy dog eyes and she begs me one last time to just go with her. So as I'm about to slam the door on this delusional girl's face who really thinks I'm gonna walk miles and miles in the snow just so I can watch her get a tattoo, I look in her eyes and I ask, "Do you really think Jeff isn't in Helga's room?" She looks at me all weird and she goes, "Yes, I don't believe that Jeff is in Helga's room." So that's when I realized that this girl was really stupid. Either she's blinded by love or her IQ is just really low. Either way, I started feeling bad for this young stupid lady because she was gonna be walking alone and she might leave the tattoo shop all late, so that meant that she'll be walking in Japan by herself at night. And as an airman, I started feeling like, well, I can't leave a fellow wingman behind. So yes, this dumb, delusional young lady convinced me to go with her. So as we're walking, I ask, "Well, what kind of tattoo you think about getting?" She says that she's planning on getting an outline of a hand tattooed on her left butt cheek. Confused, I'm like, "What do you mean? You mean like the turkey that kids make with their hands on Thanksgiving?" She's like, "Yeah, but it's just the outline, so nothing's gonna be inside the hand. So basically, the tattoo is just gonna be a tracing of someone's hand." So I asked, "Whose hands are you gonna outline?" And she said that it was Jeff's hand. So I'm thinking, this man is currently in another lady's bedroom while this young lady is about to get his handprint tattooed on her left butt cheek. All I kept thinking is, yes, it's messed up, but at the same time, it's none of my business. I remember growing up and I remember my mother telling me to never get involved in someone's relationship or never get in between a couple going through some issues. Because if I do, in the end, I'll look like the bad guy. In this case, if I tell Peggy that Jeff is probably in the room sleeping with Helga, and let's say Jeff admits it, well, she could easily forgive Jeff, and Jeff will be mad at me for snitching or betraying his trust. So together, they'll decide that I'm not trustworthy or a true friend because I got involved with their entanglement. So even today, I have both female and male friends who creep on the low, but that's none of my business. Anyway, so we get to the tattoo shop, and the same Japanese tattooist, Fumi, the one that we met during our first little walk around town, well, he starts going ahead and starts prepping for the tattoo. Fortunately, we were the only people in the tattoo shop because she needed to lay down on her stomach, because she needed to pull down her pants and fully expose herself. So she was just wearing a small G-string so the tattooist could have full range of her left butt cheek. So Fumi starts bringing out the stencil because he actually printed it out, because earlier in the week, Jeff came through and got his hand traced. So Fumi showed her the stencil and everybody started laughing. Because I mean, the tattoo was kind of weird. I mean, a traced hand, girl's crazy. So in a thick Japanese accent, he asked her, so are you sure you want to do this? And all excited, she goes, hell yeah, let's do it. So he's like, okay. So he puts it on her, and then he goes, walk to the mirror. I want you to see it. It's like he was also trying to give her hints because she really looked stupid. The tattoo looked really ugly. And he was trying to give her as many times as he could to think about what she's about to do. I mean, yes, Peggy does look like the girl from The Exorcist. But hey, if I can say something nice about her, the girl had a nice butt. But she was literally about to make her butt so hideous because of that dumb tattoo. So she looks in the mirror, she goes, yeah, let's do it. So she lays back down, Fumi turns on the needle, and as she's laying down, I'm sitting there right next to her with Fumi on the opposite side. Both Fumi and I look at each other, we lock eyes, and we both shake our heads like, man, this girl's hella stupid. So again, Fumi taps her on the shoulder as her butt is literally right in our face, and he asks one more time in a thick Japanese accent. He goes, are you sure you want to do this? She starts laughing and giggling, and she goes, sure, why not? We all start laughing because, man, it's hilarious, but at the same time, it's like sad and crazy. So Fumi grabs a speed stick deodorant and he starts rolling it on her butt cheek. I'm like, damn, does she stink? He goes, no, the menthol in the deodorant, it helps numb the skin, so it eases the pain for the customer. And he said since it was gonna be on her butt cheek, it really was gonna hurt. So after asking her a billion times if she really wanted to do it, he goes, okay, well, here we go. We all start laughing, but he just starts tattooing Jeff's hand on Peggy's butt cheek. It was literally one of the most dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. The handprint covered her entire butt cheek. It was from her waistline all the way down to the bottom of her butt cheek. This thing was stupid. So as soon as he starts poking her, her body's reaction was just a shake. And she was like, me and Fumi were laughing the whole time. I don't know how the hell he got the line so straight. For me, the entire experience is so hilarious. So the tattoo gets done. It was a quick one because, well, he was just tracing a hand. So we had to walk slow all those miles because she was in pain. Every time she took a step, the saran wrap would rub on her butt cheek, and I guess it hurt every time she took a step. So we got close to our buildings, we said bye to each other, and I went back to my icy fortress. So I'm back in my room, and it was a little late, so I didn't expect anybody to come visit, but all of a sudden, I hear a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole, and it was Jeff. I opened the door, he came in, but before he said anything, I said, yes, I know, it's cold in my room. So he asked me, so did you go with Peggy? And I was like, well, she couldn't find you, so she came to bother me. And he goes, so how was it? And I was like, well, it was cool, I guess. Peggy just got your handprint on her butt. So he goes, yo, I was in Helga's room. Not surprised, I was like, I know. I heard some shuffling outside Helga's door. And I also noticed that you looked through the peephole when Peggy and I were knocking at the door. Shocked, he was like, really? You heard us? What did Peggy say? I was like, well, I don't think she heard, but I mean, I heard it. So maybe she was just pretending she didn't hear anything? I don't know, it was just weird. And he dropped the bomb on me and he said, yeah, man, when you guys knocked, we were actually on her bed having sex. And once again, I had to ask, I was like, bro, at least tell me you use protection. Again, he's like, bro, you know I'm allergic to latex. I mean, at this point, I was like, bro, you raw dog Helga too, man. You crazy, man. Disappointed, he goes, I know, man. Plus, it was horrible, and she tasted like cigarettes. I don't know, I thought it was disgusting, but hey, it's not my penis. Surprisingly, all worried, he goes, was Peggy mad? Judging by how she was acting, I was like, nah, man, I think she's good. She got your handprint tattooed, and she just went home. So he's all like, all right, man, thanks. And he just left. So we get to school in the morning, and everybody was just acting normal, like nothing happened. But Peggy did have to sit halfway on the chair because, well, her butt cheek was in pain. Other than that, everything was normal and the weekend just passed by like nothing happened. So our third week in Japan was just going by. We were still in class and Jeff and I decided to go eat at the food court. The food court was a little far, but I really wanted some empanadas from Taco Bell. Here's a fun fact. Just so that you know, every Air Force base in the world has a Taco Bell and a Burger King. And I was always happy with that because empanadas at Taco Bell are my favorite. So as we get there and we're about to walk in, guess who comes walking out of the food court? It was Natalie. Remember her from the beginning of the story? She was a young lady with the bright blue eyes, and she was from Wyoming. I mentioned how I saw her in Texas while Jeff and her were eating in the chow hall. You know, the 19-year-old chick who divorced her 30-year-old husband? She looks like the mix of Uma Thurman on the Pulp Fiction cover and Mila Kunis. Yeah, her fine self. Well, she was coming outside of the food court with the staff sergeant who was showing her around base. And when she saw us, obviously she recognized Jeff, and Jeff went up to her and gave her a hug. He then introduced her to me. She shook my hand and she goes, "Hi, my name is Natalie." I'm like, "Nice to meet you, my name is JD." Jeff asked her what she was doing in Japan, and she said she was gonna be stationed here for a couple years and she was gonna start FTAC next week. Jeff asked for her number and she gave it to him. She also mentioned that she lived in the same building that we did, but she lived on the 3rd floor. Obviously we knew it was the same building because she mentioned the building numbers. So like I said, same building, 3rd floor. So we said bye and we went inside the food court. As soon as the automatic doors closed behind us, he goes, "Bro, I'm gonna sleep with her." He said after dinner he was gonna go home and call her so he could ask her out on a date. I said, "Alright, bet." I mean, this girl was hot. Not like those ugly trolls that he's used to. So guy code, I'm like, alright, since he knew her first, it's only fair that he asked her out first. I said, "Cool, but if she ain't feeling you, I'ma ask her out." He said, "Alright, cool." So Jeff calls her up later that night and they agreed to go to dinner the next day. So I knew I was gonna eat dinner by myself the next day, and my fat self, I just wanted to go eat empanadas at Taco Bell again. So the next day, I make my way back to the food court for some empanadas. All of a sudden, I see Jeff and Natalie eating at Taco Bell. I stopped and I'm like, damn, you know, I don't want to seem like a hater or interrupt their date in any type of way. So I turned around and headed somewhere else to eat. Jeff's back was toward me, but Natalie and I saw each other. However, we didn't make a big deal out of it. Fortunately, the food court is real close to the front gate, so I just went off base to have some authentic Japanese food. I was thinking Jeff was probably gonna take her somewhere nice to eat. I mean, to me, this girl was way too cute to be eating at Taco Bell on the first date. I mean, I understand Peggy and Helga, but I would have at least taken pretty Natalie off base to go eat some Japanese food. So I get home after dinner and I get a knock on my door. It's Jeff. I open the door and he comes in. He goes, "Bro, I don't know how the hell you've been doing it, but it's so cold in here." At this point, I'm just ignoring all that. Then he drops a bomb on me. He's like, "Bro, you know how I just went out to dinner with Natalie, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, how was it?" And he goes, "Remember how I told you back in Texas how she divorced her 30-year-old husband?" I'm like, yeah, I remember that." He goes, "Dude, she told me everything about what happened in her marriage and why they broke up." I'm like, "Bro, you took this girl on a date and all you guys did was talk about her marriage?" He's like, "Yes, I know it's weird, but this is crazy." So curious about the cheese, I'm like, "Well, what happened?" So he goes, "Okay, Natalie said that her husband was always cheating on her, but she finally broke it off when her husband gave her genital warts." I'm like, what? This girl literally told you she had genital warts. He's like, "I know, bro, what the hell, right?" He goes, "Man, I thought I was gonna have sex with 3 girls in my first 3 weeks in Japan, but I'm not trying to risk getting genital warts." I mean, shoot, you can't get rid of that. Feeling sad for Natalie, I'm like, damn, that's pretty crazy. In my mind, it made sense because like I said before, why would a 30-year-old man divorce a 19-year-old beautiful woman? It's either because he's cheating or abusive or she's just crazy. So the husband giving Natalie genital warts, breaking up and divorcing makes sense. Also, at the time, as a 19-year-old kid, I was freshly out of high school. I remember having a few female friends in high school who told me that they had genital warts and some of them had genital herpes. So I already knew a few young ladies who already contracted it at 16 and 17. Plus, I remember one of my friends getting HIV the summer that we graduated. So the topic wasn't new to me, but damn, I just thought it was crazy that her husband would do that to her. So the week went on and we graduated FTAC. So now it was our 4th week in Japan and there were 2.5 weeks left until Valentine's Day. You know, the week that Jeff's fiance was supposed to be showing up. So we start work and we get assigned to different sections. Even though all 3 of us were separated, Peggy and I worked in the same building. She would sometimes ask me for a ride since we worked in the same building and we lived close by. Fun fact, during my time in FTAC, I won 2 cars in 2 separate 30-man rock, paper, scissors tournaments. So fair warning, don't play rock, paper, scissors with me. Anyway, on that 4th week, I was walking to my room in that mile-long hallway, and from a distance, I see Jeff coming out of his room. As he was getting closer, I noticed a familiar shirt he had on. And yes, as he got closer, I saw what this man was wearing. This man was wearing the white t-shirt with the picture of him and his fiancée on it. You know, the t-shirt he was wearing when we first landed in Tokyo? Yes, that same t-shirt. So he daps me up and he had the biggest smile on his face. So I asked, "Yo, Peggy is cool with you wearing that shirt?" I mean, cause to me at this point, since she was basically already living with him, got his handprint tattooed on her butt cheek, I would assume that she wouldn't be cool with that. So he goes, "You already know, man, you know I got it like that." So I'm like, "Alright, play on, player." I mean, shoot, I'm not trying to hate, if he really has it like that. He asked me to go to dinner with him, and I was like, all right, let's go. So we went, and since he was wearing the t-shirt, I asked about his fiance, and he said that she was still coming to Japan, and they're planning on keeping the same date for her to arrive on Valentine's Day. So the next day, I go to work, and my master sergeant tells me that I'm going to be working 12-hour shifts. However, I'm going to be working at a different location somewhere on base. So my master sergeant said that I'll be starting those hours February 1st, and that I had the night shift. She said it was just gonna be me, another airman, and 2 sergeants. So it's February 1st, and I get to this new building at noon. Obviously, I'm working from noon to midnight. And guess what airman shows up to work a 12-hour shift with me? Good old Peggy. So it's the first week of February, and I'm working 12-hour shifts with Peggy. Most of the time, it was just me and Peggy by ourselves after the sergeants told us what to do. Obviously, working 12-hour shifts with somebody, there's going to be some conversation. I didn't mind talking to her because she was the type to talk and work. So as long as she worked, I really didn't mind if she blabbered all night long. So during the first long shift, she tells me that she feels so lucky that she met Jeff. Me, in my head, I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, crazy girl. Then she drops a bomb on me. She tells me that she fell in love with Jeff and that she really wants to marry him. Bruh. This girl is crazy. So, to not mess up my homie's game, however, still trying to protect this delusional girl, I ask, how do you know he's the one? She gives me the stupidest answer. She goes, well, I just know. This girl's an idiot. So, just to dig a little more, without making it too obvious, I asked, so, what's up with that shirt that he was wearing last week with the picture of his fiancée on it? Stunned, she goes, oh my God, it's so crazy what happened to his fiancée, right? Confused, I'm like, what happened to her? She's like, oh my God, he didn't tell you? I'm like, what happened to his fiancée? She goes, well, you know how she died, right? I'm like, what? What do you mean? I didn't hear that she died. Surprised, she goes, oh, he didn't tell you? And I was like, no, what happened? I mean, for real, this was news to me. I'm really thinking that his fiancée just died. So I'm over here like, tell me what happened. Then she goes, well, when we were in tech school back in Texas, she died in a horrible car accident. He wears that lovely t-shirt in memory of her. I'm like, who told you this? She goes, Jeff told me. It's so sad, right? I'm like, yeah, it's so sad. Jeff is nuts. Me thinking that he had it like that. All he was doing was just lying to Peggy so she could be his little fun dumpster until his fiancée arrives on Valentine's Day. So at this point, I don't even know what to do. This man is straight lying on her, but he's my homie, so I'm not trying to ruin his crazy, messed up game. Also, I'm just trying to give her hints to kind of give her a different idea just to try to change the way she feels? I don't know. I mean, what would you do with all this information? So just to dig in and I guess impose a little more, obviously without snitching on my friend, I asked Peggy, so would your parents approve of you marrying Jeff? Then she says, well, I don't think they'll give me good advice since my dad was the best man at my mother's first wedding. Plus, my parents are divorced now. I'm like, wait, in my head, I'm like, wait, your dad was the best man at your mama's first wedding? Yo, that's some Jerry Springer stuff for you. So that kind of gave me a little glimpse in her life to help me verify that, well, this young lady had a messed up mentality. So I'm starting to understand that this girl really is a little crazy. So like I said, wrong or right, I still wasn't trying to hate on my homie. So all I said was, well, I'm happy for you guys. So the shift was over and I was just so happy to get away from this crazy girl. Literally, as soon as I was walking out the building at midnight, a guy from the next shift stops me at the door. He goes, yo, JD, Natalie called me earlier. She asked me to tell you if you could swing by her room after you get off of work. In my head, I'm thinking, Natalie? Natalie? Genital Warts Natalie? I asked the guy, for what? He's like, I don't know. But hey, maybe she could keep you warm at night so you don't have to sleep in your icebox. So as you can see, after 5 weeks of living in Japan, everyone already knows, and now it's an ongoing joke, that I live in a frozen fortress of solitude. So I asked him if he knew where she lived. So he said, yeah, in your building on the 3rd floor, by the stairway. So he turns around and he walks away, and I start walking toward my car. As I was walking, I started thinking, bro, the only reason a young, beautiful lady would invite you to her room at midnight is because she's looking for some snap and tickle. But at the same time, maybe I'm getting a little too ahead of myself. I mean, I only met this girl once. She probably just wants me to help her move furniture or something. So during my drive home, I start thinking about my intentions. Just in case she starts thinking about knocking some boots, I was going to purposely show up to her room in my dirty work clothes. Obviously, I'll be giving a different vibe than someone showing up freshly showered, clean shaved, looking clean with some cologne on, with a pack of condoms with some wine. And obviously, I'm not trying to do anything because I don't want to gamble on getting bumps on my baloney pony. So I get to my building and I walk up the stairs to the 3rd floor. I see her name tag on the room and I take a deep breath, hoping she doesn't want to slap and pickle. So I knock. This beautiful young lady answers the door in a pink silk nightie. Her makeup and her hair is done. She gives me a hug and her perfume just tries to hypnotize me. Without saying a word, she grabs my hand and she leads me inside a room. All the lights were off and the only things that were lit were candles and the TV. So we're inside the room and I jokingly asked, so I heard you got some furniture you want me to move. She asked my dumb joke and I was just like, nah, I'm just playing. But curious, I'm like, so what's up, Natalie? And she goes, oh, nothing. I just wanted to know if you wanted to watch a movie with me. So we all know what that means. I mean, judging by the situation, I mean, she wants to Netflix and chill. You know, at this point, I usually get my, Mac Denzel mode on. But the only thing that was going through my mind was, this girl has a sick uterus. Sick uterus. Obviously, every man in this situation could probably be standing up. However, I ended up having an innie. My penis was just trying to pack up and leave. I just couldn't get those genital warts out of my mind. So then I asked, well, what movie do you want to watch? She's like, I don't know, but I think I have the new Robin Williams movie. So at this point, since she doesn't even know what movie she wants to watch, obviously I'm picking up what she's putting down. Catching what she's throwing. But I was trying to maneuver my way out of the situation. So I was like, you know what? I'm a little tired. I just got off a 12-hour shift. I'm dirty and I feel like I stink. She's like, oh, it's okay. You could shower here. I have some gray sweatpants you could borrow. Then she goes, and I heard that your heater doesn't work, so maybe you could spend the night and we could keep each other warm. I was like, girl. And I'm thinking like, man, if only she didn't have genital warts. So at this point, I'm just not trying to be rude, I guess. Since, she was trying to make me stay. And also, I wouldn't mind kicking it with some hot girl in her nice smelling room. Well, since I knew I didn't want any hanky-panky, I'm like, alright, pop the movie in. I'm thinking, I could stay and watch a Robin Williams movie. Everyone loves Robin Williams movies. Jumanji, Miss Doubtfire, Flubber. I could chill and laugh for a couple hours. Why not? It's better than being alone in my frozen icebox. So I sit down on her recliner and I'm still in full uniform. The lights are still off. She pops in the movie and she lays down on her bed. As soon as the opening credits start, she gives me one last hint. She goes, come in bed with me. Let's watch the movie underneath the sheets. Hesitant, I'm like, nah, I'm good here. While I make myself comfortable grabbing the chair handle and reclining back to stretch out a little bit. And not gonna lie, I was pretty excited to watch a movie. However, I didn't know that the latest Robin Williams movie at the time was literally the worst movie he ever made. It's called The Night Listener. The whole time, I was waiting for something funny to happen. I even think that Natalie took a nap while we were watching the film. I was just waiting for Robin Williams to dress up as a nanny or run away from rhinos. But no, the movie was a serious movie where Robin Williams played a gay radio host. So yes, the situation was literally me in a room with a hot chick who was hot and bothered while watching Robin Williams acting like an unfunny gay man. Bruh. Yes, telling the story is embarrassing for me, but hey, I didn't want to risk having lumps on my magic stick. So after 2 long, grueling hours of watching this dumb movie, I get up, stretch out, and I say, alright, I'm gonna head out. So Natalie goes for the final push. She goes, don't leave, I just want some company. Please spend the night. As I'm heading towards the door, I say, nah, I'm cool. It's 2 in the morning and I gotta get to bed. It's funny because I can still visualize her sitting on her bed, confused and disappointed at me for not wanting to take her advances. I mean, this was a gorgeous young lady just looking for some loving. What man wouldn't fall for her? Maybe you guys would risk it, but I guess I just appreciate having a clean whistle. Clean whistle. I said bye, and then I go back to my little icebox. More on me and Natalie later on in the story, but for now, let's stay with Jeff and Peggy. But I promise to add on to the Natalie story. It goes deeper, but let me finish off the Jeff and Peggy story. But I promise to bring back Natalie. So the week goes on, and I'm still working 12-hour shifts with Peggy. So I go on my lunch break, and since I was working from noon to midnight, my lunch was roughly during dinner time, and the chow hall has set hours. Obviously, they have slots for breakfast, hours for lunch, and different hours for dinner. So they're open and closed around the same time every single day. So as I go to my lunch, it's dinner time for everybody else. I go to lunch and I see Jeff at the chow hall. I shake his hand and I'm like, hey man, Valentine's Day is next week. Are you excited to see your fiance? Excited? He's like, hell yeah man, I can't wait. I noticed Jeff was grabbing to-go boxes while I was putting my food on a tray because I wanted to eat inside the chow hall. Obviously, if he had to-go boxes, he wasn't gonna eat inside the chow hall. So as soon as we got our food, I said bye to him and I just ate at the chow hall by myself. So I head back to work and that's when me and Peggy changed spots. So since I just came back from lunch, she gets an hour to go to lunch after I get back. So after she comes back from lunch, I see her coming in with the biggest smile on her face. Smile from ear to ear. Curious, I'm like, yo, what's up, Peggy? What's going on? She's like, you won't believe it. I'm like, whoa, what's up? What happened? She's like, Jeff just proposed to me. And she shows me the ring. I'm like, what? Like, what? Confused. I'm just confused. Yo, I didn't believe anything she was saying. This whole situation was just unbelievable. I mean, I just saw him. He literally just told me that he was so excited to see his fiance, who was going to arrive next week for Valentine's Day. Excited. She goes, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm Jeff's future wife. I'm like, yeah, girl, I can't believe it either. Like I said, I just saw Jeff. You would think he would tell me something. So Peggy spent the remaining hours in our shift just showing off her ring. So when the shift ended, I went back home and I knocked on Jeff's door. He opened up and I shake his hand. I'm like, hey man, congrats on your second engagement. He goes, I know, right? Thank you, man. Confused. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? He's like, I don't know, man. I just thought it was easier to marry a girl who's already here than marry a girl who I had to bring from my hometown. Trying to comprehend everything, because I mean, it's nuts. You know, the only thing I can say is, bro, you're crazy. Agreeing, he goes, I know, man, but who cares? I don't know. I mean, if this guy is already acknowledging that he's crazy, at this point, what can I do? I mean, if his crazy decisions make him happy, then just let him be happy. I mean, what would you guys do? And yes, as a friend, we're all only 19. However, I don't know. As I'm remembering it and I'm saying it and I'm sharing it with you guys, all this is just crazy to me. I guess you could say it's been a crazy 5 weeks. The next day, Peggy changes her entire MySpace page and covers it with pictures of Jeff. Yes, MySpace. She even changes her name on her MySpace to Jeff's future wife. So by the end of the week, we're told that we're done working 12-hour shifts and we're allowed to go back to work at our regular duty section. With that, I also got some amazing news. Jeff, Peggy, and I were told that we were going to receive our permanent rooms. So you know what that means? No more living in the Arctic. No more frozen room. I'm about to get my permanent room with the heater that works. Best thing I heard in the last 5 weeks. So I get a room key. It's like a little credit card. Obviously, if you've ever been to a hotel room, you know they use a card. So it's like a hotel key. So all excited, I get to my new room. First thing I do, check if the heater works. And yup, the heater was good to go. So I noticed that Jeff, Peggy, and I, we end up getting new rooms in the same building. So Peggy and I, we get rooms on the second floor. The reason why I know this is because her room is in front of my room. So obviously, she's right across the hall from me. Jeff ended up getting a room downstairs, right underneath Peggy's room. And yeah, you would think that I would probably trade with them. But as soon as I saw a working heater, I'm not going anywhere. Selfishly, I was just trying to be warm. I'm not risking anything. It's time for me to be warm, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not giving up my room. So we spend the entire weekend moving into our new building. The weekend goes by and Peggy and I go back to our regular jobs. And like I said before, we work in different sections, but we work in the same building. And the building's not that big. So as Peggy and I were at work, I overhear her flirting with one of my coworkers, but flirting in a creeper type of way. So she was going around the building and she was sharing how she had a crush on my coworker. I mean, the guy was pretty cool. He was my friend. He was actually my direct coworker. And like I said, I guess she had a crush on him. It was hilarious watching him duck and dodge her. Like every single day, she'll want to come into my office so she could flirt with my coworker. But as soon as he would hear her in the hallway, hallway, he'll just sneak out the back door. Peggy was a major creep. Yo, this girl would flirt hard. She would like touch him and like rub his shoulders, rub his back. You know, really emphasize it. Like every time she'll talk to him, she'll like touch him on the chest, touch him on the arms. Real borderline sexual harassment type of stuff. Man, my homie would get so mad and so embarrassed. I mean, this is Peggy we're talking about. You know, Peggy. Obviously an overweight lady who's not easy on the eyes. Plus, she's engaged. And trust me, my homie was not trying to lead her on and he was not flirting back. She just wouldn't get the hint. Because every time she'll try to touch him, he'll like move back. And like I said, the fact that he'll duck and dodge her and every time she'll come in my section and come flirt with him, he'll make an excuse to go leave and go do something else just to avoid talking to her. So the next week, my coworker saw Jeff, Peggy, and I, and a few other friends in the chow hall. Jeff, not knowing that Peggy was over here flirting and filling up on my coworker every chance she got. Jeff sees my coworker and he goes, "Hey man, what's up? How you doing?" Everybody in the squadron is familiar with each other since we had to go to commander's call every single week. So even though you don't have a personal relationship with everybody, you at least know them through passing. So when Jeff said hi to my coworker came to our table where we were eating. All pissed, he yells, "Yo, tell your girl to leave me alone, I don't want her." And he storms out of the chow hall. Jeff, bright red from embarrassment, he looks at Peggy and he asks, "Yo, what is he talking about?" Shamefully, she starts crying and she runs out of the chow hall. Jeff gets up and he chases after her. Everyone on the table is just stunned. I'm over here with a spoonful of food because hey, at this point, I'm just used to all this craziness. I totally understand where my coworker was coming from because seriously, Peggy was going hard. Like I said, it was borderline sexual harassment. So during the rest of the week, we didn't see Peggy come visit us in our office. It was actually the most comfortable I ever seen my coworker. Okay guys, so it's finally Valentine's Day. I guess it wasn't meant for me to meet Jeff's fiance from Iowa. I mean, I was kind of bummed because I've been hearing about this girl for over 6 months. I mean, at one point, she even died. But hey, I guess I couldn't meet the zombie lady. So I'm hanging out in my room, watching some TV, hanging out by myself. So yeah, that meant that I didn't have a Valentine. All of a sudden, I hear someone knocking all loud at my door. I open up the door and Peggy rushes into my room crying hysterically. Shocked, I was like, "What's wrong?" Without saying anything, she just takes off her shirt. I'm like, "Yo, whoa, what are you doing?" Crying, she goes, "Look what Jeff did." I look at Peggy with nothing but her bra on and she had a hell of bruises all over her body. She had bruises all over her stomach, her chest, her arms, and her back. Yo, Jeff was using her straight up like a punching bag. It looked really bad. She goes, "He's beating me up because I was flirting with your coworker." At this point, I just felt like I needed to do something. I mean, yes, the whole cheating thing, I didn't want to get involved in that. But now, I mean, Jeff is really beating on her. So now I felt like I needed to intervene. But still, at the same time, even though, yes, I did feel like I needed to do something, I was hesitant because at the end of the day, it's none of my business. I mean, what would you do at 19 and all this is presented to you? So I asked her if she wanted me to do something. Now, I wasn't thinking about beating on the guy, but at the same time, we should tell somebody. I mean, no matter who it is, whether if it's a supervisor, the police, you know, another friend, the chaplain, anybody. I mean, shoot, we can even call her mama. So she goes, no, I'm not showing you this so you could do something. I just needed to tell somebody. So respectfully, I tell her to put her shirt back on. So as she's putting her shirt back on, I hug her and I tell her to have a seat. So again, I ask, "What do you want me to do?" I start mentioning what I just said, how we should call the cops. Do you want me to tell your supervisor? Because at this point, this is real serious. So then she begs me, "No, please don't tell anybody." Then she starts making me feel guilty by saying, "Oh, I thought I could trust you. You know, I thought you were my friend. I didn't think that you were gonna tell anybody." So I was like, "Peggy, do you really want to be in this abusive relationship?" And she just goes, "Well, I love him." So I did my best to just calm her down and help her gain her composure. So after shifting the energy for like an hour, she washed her face and she left. At the end of it, I felt like I should just stay out of it, especially the way she was kind of using it against me. So I just felt like it wasn't my place to do or say anything. However, I did need to have a conversation with Jeff soon. I waited a few days for everything to calm down and I went down to Jeff's room to try to have a man-to-man conversation with him. Cause I mean, at this point, this man is still my friend. So I'm in Jeff's room and I'm just trying to have a good conversation. I'm not trying to be confrontational. I'm just trying to be a friend. So I asked Jeff, "Hey man, why are you beating up Peggy? You know, that's not a good look, bro." As soon as I calmly say that, he starts yelling. He goes, "Hey man, get out of my business. Man, I can't believe she told you. I don't want you talking to Peggy anymore. You know, real friends don't get in each other's business." Then he goes, "Get out of my room." And he straight kicked me out of his room. And you know, I'm not trying to fight the man. I wasn't there to try to beat him up or anything. So I just walked out. As soon as I walked out, he yells, "And don't talk to me again." I mean, what am I supposed to do? I mean, I'm surprised my friend reacted like that, especially the way I approached him. I wasn't trying to come in and attack him. I was just trying to understand and have a conversation. So like I said, I just walked out and I just went to my room. So it's the last week of February, and the chief of our entire squadron, he pulls me in his office. He tells me that he's shipping me out to Afghanistan on April 1st. So that means that I'm literally shipping off in less than 5 weeks. So they sent me through some training during those 5 weeks, and I also start to out-process my base in Japan. However, I still have to report in to my regular duty section. So now, during the first week of March, I start out-processing. I randomly check my messages or my DMs on MySpace, and I see a message from Allison. I don't know if you guys remember Allison from earlier, but I met Allison during my time in Texas. She was from Connecticut, and if you remember who I'm talking about, she was a girl who left during training, went back home, and then she came back, and that's where I met her in the same class with Jeff. Well, anyway, like I said, her and Jeff had a thing with each other, and if you recall, she was actually the reason why Jeff wanted to move to the East Coast, so he could be close to her. So I read her message on MySpace, and she wrote, "Hey JD, how are you? Long time no talk. I remember you got stationed in Japan with Jeff." Then the message goes, "Well, guess what? Jeff and I have been talking for a while, and we decided to be with each other. I'm going to buy my ticket to go visit him in Japan. I hope we all get a chance to hang out with each other when I get there. See you guys soon." Bro, at this point, I'm just so sick and tired of this man's lies and entanglements. This man is just hella messy. So to just keep it short, I just sent her the link to Peggy's MySpace page. A page blasted with pictures of Jeff and Peggy kissing and hugging. And like I said, Peggy even changed her main name on her MySpace to Jeff's future wife. I also added a note and I said, "Look girl, Jeff is engaged. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Just don't waste your money coming over here. And after you see the link, honestly, just leave me out of it." As y'all can see, I was just done with Jeff's drama. She later responded and she thanked me for it, letting her know. So I dropped back to work to go check into my regular duty section, and a sergeant in our building gets everyone together. And she tells us that we all needed to be at the base courthouse on March 15th. And guess why? Because everybody needed to support Peggy, because that's the day that Peggy and Jeff are legally getting married. And yes, it was mandatory. So March 15 comes and we all carpool to the courthouse. And we all witness this beautiful, loving couple come together as one. Yes, I mean, it was awkward being there and witnessing these two idiots marry each other. I don't know if it was more awkward for me or the guy Peggy was always flirting with in my shop, because he had to be there too. But we all had to be there regardless because we had to follow orders. And as Jeff requested, I didn't approach them or talk to them at all. The rules from the sergeant was just show up, watch them get married, and have some snacks. After the cookies and the fruit punch, we were free to go. So I just left, and that was that. Congrats to Mr. and Mrs. Jeff. So it's now my last week in Japan. Now all I have to do is just show up to work, let them know I'm alive, and let them know that I'm not going AWOL or running away from the war. So I go into work and everyone in the building is just hanging out together in the warehouse. So I say hi to the entire room and I just take a seat and just listen to the conversation that was already going on. All of a sudden, Peggy sees my coworker, you know, the one she has a crush on. Then she yells in front of everybody, "Damn boy, you looking extra hot today." All weird, everybody was like, what the hell? The sergeant who organized the mandatory trip to the courthouse for Peggy's wedding, she was like, "Girl, didn't you just get married?" Peggy goes, "Well, Jeff's my husband at home, but he's my work husband." Everyone started laughing, but Peggy was dead serious. Man, I hella felt bad for my coworker because he really hated Peggy. Like I said, she would always flirt with him, but it was unwanted. And even though they have a history together, obviously when he told Jeff to tell her to leave him alone, and obviously after the beatings and after everything else, nope, it didn't stop Peggy, and she continued to flirt with my coworker. Nah, but I really felt bad because he hated her. So even though I just got to the office, that was actually my cue to leave. So I leave and I just wait for April 1st. So now it's April 1st and I'm now on a plane to Afghanistan. So I spent my whole summer and fall there, and after my deployment, I came back home to California to vacation for a month. So I finally transitioned back to Japan around November 1st. I haven't seen Jeff and Peggy in a while, but through some rumors around the squadron, I heard that Jeff wasn't doing so good in his career. I was told he failed his physical fitness test. He also failed a few academic tests that we have to take. The worst part is I heard that he was getting fired from a few sections around the squadron. Many sergeants didn't want him working in their section, so he would just bounce around in different sections, annoy the sergeants, and then then get sent to another section, and he was just in that cycle. So as I was transitioning back into my base in Japan, I got invited to the squadron Thanksgiving party. All these parties are mandatory. It's to raise morale and promote camaraderie, so we all have to be there. So I get to the Thanksgiving party, and I see Jeff and Peggy at a distance. I really had no idea, but Peggy was hella pregnant. I mean, good for them. She looked like she was already in her 3rd trimester. I haven't been in their drama in a long time, so hey, maybe Jeff changed his creeper ways. So in the military, female service members have the choice to get out honorably during their 3rd trimester of pregnancy, so they can get out and take care of their newborn baby. Peggy takes the option and she discharges from the military. So now she's a stay-at-home wife and officially a dependent. So she gives birth to her first baby, and shortly after, she gets pregnant again. So one day when I'm at work in my old duty section, you know, the section within the building where me and Peggy used to work at. So I'm at work, and all of a sudden, I hear the front door slam open, and in rushes in Peggy, crying hysterically. She runs down the hallway to her old duty section, and she starts yelling for her old supervisor. So that sergeant comes out, and she gets her into her office so they can speak privately. After a while, Peggy comes out of the sergeant's office with no tears. Everything's calm now. She walks past my office, and she walks out the building. So, through human nature, that same sergeant who Peggy just came to cry to, the same sergeant who helped her organize her entire wedding, she comes into the office to gossip, to spill the tea. Or, as we know, what's a Mexican's favorite kind of cheese? Cheeseman. So this lady just came in to just spread the cheese. I mean, shoot, I have no problem with that. I mean, look at you guys. How far are you into this story? See, you guys are cheese monsters. Anyway, so here's the cheese. So Peggy went to her appointment at the OBGYN because, like I said, she got pregnant again after giving birth to the first baby. So during her appointment, the doctor obviously was telling her that she was pregnant, the baby was healthy, but that she contracted genital warts. Peggy said she wasn't cheating on Jeff. However, Jeff admitted that he was having sex with the Japanese prostitutes off base. As we know, knowing that Jeff is allergic to latex, this nasty man was off base having unprotected sex with Japanese hookers. And he ended up giving genital warts to his pregnant wife. Crazy. I mean, just thinking about it, like I said before, just remembering things, saying it, and just going back in time and putting myself back in 2007, reliving that situation, it's just crazy because, I mean, it really happened, and that's pretty messed up. So we asked the sergeant what she told her. So the sergeant advised her to leave Jeff. So finally, after the beatings, after the entanglements, the lies, and genital warts, Peggy agrees to leave Jeff. So Peggy bought 2 plane tickets for her and her newborn daughter to go back to her hometown. So unfortunately, as Jeff's family life was falling apart, the Air Force actually decided to kick him out. He would act crazy and rude with everybody, and at one point he just stopped listening to every single sergeant. And like I said, he was failing his physical fitness test and his academic testing. So with all that combined, they gave him an admin discharge and they just ended back home to Iowa. So Peggy lasted a little over a year in the military, and Jeff completed 2 years out of his 6-year contract. So the last thing I heard from Peggy was that she had the second child that she was pregnant with, and after that she got remarried to someone in her hometown. Jeff went back to Iowa, he remarried, and he had 2 more kids. And that's the last thing I know from that crazy couple. Crazy, right? Alright, so let's rewind about a year so I could tell you guys about that horny girl Natalie. You know, Natalie. Okay, so around the same time I went to Afghanistan, Natalie deployed to Iraq. So during our time in the Middle East, she would email me, she'll send me some pictures, and we'll just keep in touch. Either through MySpace, Yahoo email, or through the government computer. And also, she would call me a couple times from Iraq to Afghanistan, and we would just talk here and there. It wasn't turning into something serious, but we developed a cool friendship. Yes, we would flirt with each other, but it was just fun and games between 2 teenagers. So when we got back to Japan from our deployments, we would go on a few dates here and there. I wouldn't say we were dating because, like I said, I just couldn't see myself being with this girl. I mean, yes, she was beautiful and she was a cool girl, but as we know, the whole warts thing, I just couldn't do it. But yes, we would go out, we would go on dates, we would go to dinner, go to lunch, go to movies, but it never went past that. But I mean, every time I would go out with her, for some reason, and yes, I'm not fully blaming her, I was going along with the flirting thing, and somehow, every single time we hung out, we would always end up in her room. And all of a sudden, she would want to take naps, or she would think that, hey, if I keep him over here a little longer, maybe he'll want to spend the night. But respectfully, it was always a no for me. So at this point, we built a genuine friendship. And at the end, I was appreciative for the way she would treat me. I mean, she was a sweet lady. So I didn't want to lose that friendship. And yeah, I guess if the warts weren't involved, I mean, who wouldn't pursue it? Like I said, she was a nice, kind, beautiful lady. But yeah, so let me tell you some sweet things she'll do for me. So This girl was born and raised in the state of Wyoming, and now she lives in Japan. So that meant the few months that she spent in Texas during boot camp and tech school, that was, I guess, her only exposure to Mexican culture, if that. If she ever went off base to San Antonio and commingled with the people there. But 9 times out of 10, a brand new airman in training was gonna stay on base. So like I said, maybe she got a little bit of taste of the Mexican culture in Texas, but out of 19 years of living in Wyoming and now living in Japan, she wasn't really exposed to the Mexican American culture. But somehow, every time this girl would cook for me, she would make some of the most delicious tacos ever. It's funny because she actually taught herself how to make some homemade salsa with some horchata. I mean, hey, this girl was trying, man. Yo, I remember this one time, she invited me to her room because she said she wanted to cook for me. So she made me some enchiladas with some rice and beans. And this girl also bought some Corona and some Patron. Then she ends up popping in the Selena DVD. And it was cool. Hey, I was just eating some enchiladas and watching the Selena movie with a hot chick. You know, it was pretty cool, I guess. I can't complain. But hey, what can I say? This nice white girl from Wyoming was very nice to me, and she was very sweet to me. So I'm thankful for that. And also, I don't want to seem like she wasn't catching my drift. I mean, she wasn't waiting around for me. I mean, she also had her boyfriends. She also went on dates with other people. Because like I said, I wasn't trying to pursue her. And she was a pretty girl. So obviously, other guys would want to ask her out. And during our time in Japan, she had a few boyfriends here and there. So it's not like I was using her or anything like that. But I did appreciate the friendship. And at some points, you know, some of those boyfriends will be kind of jealous. So we'll take a pause from our friendship. Like, she wouldn't talk to me for a little bit because those guys don't want her to have some guy friends, which I guess is understandable. I mean, whatever. I mean, like I said, she was a pretty girl, so maybe some guys could be insecure. But after they'll break up, you know, she'll hit me up, we'll kick it again. So I never got confirmation for this, but I always thought she would send her girlfriends up to me so I could date her friends. I don't know, it was kind of weird, but hear me out. Let me know what you think. Okay, for example, Natalie and I never worked together. We had the same job, but we never worked in the same section. She worked in another building on the other side of base. So yes, we were in the same squadron. However, I will only see her at squadron functions during work hours. So during work hours, we would probably see each other maybe 2 to 3 hours a week. And during those short hours, we would probably say like hi and bye. We wouldn't stop and conversate. And mind you, those 2 to 3 hours, we were also in a room full of like 50 to 100 people. So it's not like we were looking for each other or even had some time to say what's up. So since I don't even have time to go look for her or try to find her, obviously if that's not my goal to go seek her out in a group full of 50 to 100 people, that meant that it was even harder for me to be introduced or even talk to her direct co-workers. I mean, I knew some of their names just because she would mention them during some conversations that we would have when we were hanging out with each other, but I wasn't trying to go out of my way to go introduce myself to some of her co-workers. I mean, I just thought that was weird. Because I mean, hey, I'm not her man. You know, why do I need to be knowing who she works with? So she worked in a section that had 90% of female airmen working in there. And a few times, some of these female airmen would just pop into my life for some reason. For example, one day I was just working. I was just on my job, doing my thing. Now, when I finally had the chance to go sit down at my desk, I checked my work emails and I received an email from an airman with an unfamiliar female name. So I checked out her signature, like her title, and I noticed that she had the same exact description that Natalie had in her emails. That's how I knew they were coworkers before I asked Natalie if she knew the girl. And the email said, "Hey JD, my name is so-and-so. I was actually wondering if you were free Friday night. Maybe we could hang out." Never meeting this girl, but knowing she works for Natalie. And also I could barely see her face just because I think I saw her during a squadron function. And knowing that Natalie works with some pretty girls, I was like, sure, why not? Let's go out. I mean, mind you, I was a single guy in Japan. I mean, if a girl wants to hang out, why not? So me and the girl go out, and yes, I confirmed that she does work with Natalie, and Natalie did give her my information. You know, then it was all good. And I went out with the girl for a few months, and we just ended up being friends. Nothing too serious, but we ended up on good terms. Also, one day, I was hanging out on a Friday night in my room by myself, when all of a sudden, I hear someone pounding at my door. Boom, boom, boom. I opened the door, and it was another pretty young lady who worked directly with Natalie. I mean, I didn't know this girl, but I did see her in a few squadron functions. So she was right there at my door, holding a bottle of Patron and some pizza. And she just said, "Hey JD, you wanna hang out?" And she just let herself in. And of course I'm not gonna kick her out. I mean, hey, she was a pretty girl, and she had my favorite, Hawaiian pizza. I mean, that night was kind of weird at first. It was because I didn't know her name. And also, she was kind of acting like we knew each other for a long time. So I mean, that was cool, but I was a little smooth with it. In the military, we go by our last names. So after she started calling me Diaz, to try to find out her name, I was like, let's not call each other by our last name. That's our work name. Fortunately, she said, "Okay, call me Ashley." And that's how we first met. She said she worked with Natalie. So by this time, this was the second point out of some more girls who knew Natalie, who would just come up to me without knowing me. I mean, I'm not complaining or anything, but it was just funny the way I meet these girls. And yes, I will date a few of them, and it was cool meeting some new people, but I don't know, sometimes I feel like some of them were fishing for information. But whatever, I had a good time hanging out with those ladies. Anyway, like I said, Natalie and I became good friends. And yes, as we know, she wanted to be more than friends, but like I keep saying, I didn't feel comfortable building more than what we had because I really didn't have knowledge about the whole genital warts thing. I also don't want to offend anybody who has genital warts. So if you're in love with somebody with genital warts, you know, I don't think you should discriminate. Educate yourself. The person who has it could educate the person who doesn't have it. But I mean, just having it doesn't mean that you're excluded from love. So guys, don't discriminate people with genital warts. But at the time, I just didn't want to risk anything. So the fact that Natalie and I were never intimate, it allowed us to build a genuine friendship. I got to know her on a personal level, and I enjoyed myself every single time we were able to hang out. It's funny, even though she was a beautiful girl, some people thought she was weird because she was extremely sarcastic and she also had a dry humor. But to me, I don't know, I thought she was funny. That's actually what I liked about her. But I mean, I don't know, I've always been open-minded to how people are. I mean, mind you, like I said, this girl was born and raised in Wyoming. She's a country girl who grew up on a farm and went cow tipping for fun. And me, I'm just a city boy from Southern California. But I don't know, we just clicked. She was overall a cool friend. Okay, so let's fast forward to the last day that I saw my friend Natalie. So after our tours in Japan, I ended up getting orders to Germany, and I believe she ended up getting orders to like Nebraska or Arkansas, some state down there. So when you have to move bases, a main rule that comes along when you have to move is that you can move any day during the actual month that you have to leave. So me, I had to stay in Japan from January 2007 all the way to January 2009. So I was leaving in January. So that meant I had the choice that I could leave on any day from the 1st of January all the way through the 31st of January. I could pick any one of those 31 days to leave the base. So if you remember from the beginning of the story, I ended up traveling during New Year's Day in 2007. And from that experience, I thought it was kind of easy because nobody was traveling during that day. Because I mean, it is a holiday. So to me, the planes and the airports weren't that crowded. Plus, I was excited to go to Germany. So I decided to just fly out on the 1st of January 2009. And since I'm going to be flying through different countries, I just wanted to avoid as many people as possible. I don't know, that's just me. So I get dropped off on New Year's Day at the airport by my supervisor. And like I said, the local airport was very small, so it was easy to just check in and just get in the plane. So I get into the small plane that's gonna take me from base to the international airport in Tokyo. So I know this is an empty plane, because like I said, nobody's traveling on New Year's Day. So I noticed 2 people in the front and just a head all the way in the back. So as I'm walking toward the back, just so I can have my own room, my own space within the empty plane, that head comes up and guess who it is? It's Natalie. And then she goes, "Hey JD, come over here, come sit next to me." I mean, I thought it was cool. I mean, that's my friend. I was excited to see my friend, so I just sat next to her. Okay, so we just ended up sitting next to each other in the back of the plane, and like I said, with like a couple of people all the way in the front. So basically, it was completely empty. And also, the only stewardess that was on there, she was sitting all the way in the front, right next to the cockpit. So it was just me and my friend sitting in the back of the plane. And it was fun riding with Natalie because all we did was just laugh and also going down memory lane of the last 2 years we just spent in Japan. You know, just reminiscing about the happy times and the good times. Well, at this moment, I had no idea, but maybe it's because Natalie and I didn't talk for like a little over 3 months just because we were so busy out processing Japan and also going through the holiday months. She ends up telling me that she got engaged. She had a ring and everything. She told me that her fiance was also in the Air Force. However, he was currently stationed in Korea, and that's also where she spent the holidays. So I mean, no wonder I haven't seen her in a while. And there's a rule when you get stationed in Korea that you get priority to choose what base you want to go to. So since she went to Nebraska or Arkansas, her fiance ended up choosing to be stationed in Arkansas or Nebraska with Natalie, or with his, you know, his new fiance. And I congratulated her. I was genuinely happy for my friend. I mean, congrats to her. Like I said, she was a cool lady, so, you know, I'm just happy she found the one. I mean, because we all know I didn't want her. Nah, just playing. So as we're riding the plane, I mean, the plane ride isn't that long, but we had some time to talk a lot. So then she hits me with it. So since we're all alone in the back of an empty plane, she goes, "Hey JD, since I'm about to get married, I'm really looking for one last fling." Girl. She goes, "You want to join the Mile High Club with me?" I mean, as I was looking around, it could happen. We are 100% alone, away from everybody. But as we already know from the entire story, how many times have I said it? I'm not trying to catch genital warts. And plus, if she didn't have genital warts, this girl was engaged, man. She was literally just showing off her engagement ring to me. Some man in Korea decided this girl was worthy enough for his last name. I didn't want none of that karma on me. You know, that's not my style. I don't sleep with people's wives or fiancés. I'm not into all that. You know, that's just me. But hey, you do you. So I respectfully declined the offer to join the Mile High Club with her. So we finally land in Tokyo, and both of us have a 5-hour layover. So we decide to have one last authentic Japanese meal. So we check in our bags and we catch a taxi to a local Japanese restaurant. It's funny how I remember what we ate because, I don't know, it was just strange. But I ordered some raw horse and she ordered some raw whale. And they were served in a rice roll. So I don't know, almost 15 years later, I can still remember that meal just because what we ordered was actually weird. But hey, that was Japan for you. And I'm not gonna lie, it was hella delicious. So as we were eating our rolls, and we were drinking some sake, she got some of that liquid courage and she started expressing herself. So then she starts admitting, she goes, "Hey JD, you know I liked you the whole time that we were in Japan, right?" So I took a shot of sake and I was like, "Yeah, I know." And she was like, "Well, if you knew, why didn't you ever like me back? Why wouldn't you date me? I mean, I'm literally 4 hours away from probably never seen this girl ever again in my life. So might as well just come clean to her and just be honest with the girl. I mean, she did try hard to try to get with me. So she at least deserves to know the truth." So I let her have it. So I asked her, "Remember the first time I met you and you went out on a date with Jeff to Taco Bell?" Well, even before that, he told me how you were divorced and how you actually divorced your husband right before you joined the military. Well, in my head, I was always curious to know why a 30-year-old man would divorce his beautiful 19-year-old wife. I always thought it was either you're crazy or he was either abusive or he was being unfaithful. So after your date with Jeff at Taco Bell, he came straight to my room and he told me how you finally broke up with your ex-husband because he cheated on you and gave you genital warts. So me knowing that you had a lifelong STD, even though yes, I knew you liked me, selfishly, I just didn't want to take the chance to catch genital warts. So that's why I couldn't see myself dating you or being with you. And there you go, everybody. She finally knew the truth. So this girl pauses for the longest time. There was an awkward silence. As she was processing what I just told her, she looks at me and she pours herself another shot of sake. She finally breaks the awkward silence. She goes, "Yes, I do remember going to Taco Bell with Jeff when I first got to Japan. And I did tell him that my husband cheated on me. But during the whole time we were eating, Jeff just kept hitting on me. However, Jeff already told me that he was engaged. Plus, I didn't like him. I wasn't attracted to him. Jeff just wasn't my type. And I also do remember meeting you when I first got to Japan. And I also remember seeing you at the food court while we were eating some Taco Bell. But then you left. So knowing that Jeff knew you, I actually started asking him about you while we were eating at Taco Bell. I asked him if you were single, and I actually told him that I thought you were cute. So when the date ended, I asked Jeff if he could give you my number. So when I invited you to my room to go watch that stupid Robin Williams movie, I thought you would already know how I felt. Since Jeff agreed to let you know that I thought you were cute and to pass on my number. I just assumed that you didn't call me because the whole squadron was working 12-hour shifts. Then she pauses. She takes that last sake shot. And then she hits me with it. She goes, "All that did happen that night. However, I never told Jeff that I had genital warts. JD, I do not have an STD, and I never had an STD my entire life. Even if my husband was cheating on me, he never gave me an STD. So JD, you're really telling me that we couldn't date each other or be with each other for these last 2 years that we spent in Japan because Jeff lied on me?" So I sit there with egg all over my face, filled with shame and embarrassment. I mean, there was nothing I could do but just laugh because, I mean, damn, Jeff. This man just hated on me. Obviously, it's my fault because I believed a man who was cheating on his fiancée with 2 ugly women, who then cheated on his new wife, gave her genital warts, to be honest with me. Now who's the idiot, right? So Natalie asked, why didn't you ever tell me? Why didn't you ever say anything? Why couldn't we have this conversation sooner? And I was like, well, I didn't want to embarrass you. Plus, I enjoyed our friendship and I appreciated you as a friend. I mean, let's be honest. I'm glad that it did happen that way because I had a cool friend for a few years. What really did I miss out on? What? Just another notch on my belt? So now the waiter comes by with the check and we just toast with our last sake shots in Japan. We cheers to our friendship and the fake genital warts. So we go back to the airport and we give each other a hug. I wish her the best for her future and her marriage, and we just got into our flights. And that was the last time I ever saw my friend Natalie. We actually didn't keep in touch, but right before she deleted her Facebook, she told me that her fiance cheated on her while he was in Korea and she ended up breaking off the engagement. Also, she ended up getting out of the military once her contract was up and she ended up moving back home to Wyoming. I haven't heard anything about her in like 10 years, but I hope she's doing well. Shout out to you, Natalie. So, moral of the story. Well, that was me at 19. Me in my 30s, I would handle everything differently, from being friends with Jeff to handling things with Peggy and also the friendship with Natalie. I mean, obviously with knowledge and experience, that's what I know I would handle everything differently. But hey, that's just how everything played out during that gap in my life while I was 19 when I first got in the military. So, what can we learn from this? All right, 1, don't believe your lying ass friends. Because hey, your friends can also be some haters too. I mean, if you know your friends lie to people they love, what makes you think they won't lie to you? A real question, right? And also, don't judge people by what other people say. If you have a question, just ask. I mean, who knows? What if I would have had that conversation with Natalie a long time ago, other than the very, very last day that I actually saw the girl? I mean, I don't know what would have happened, but I'm just saying, other people could be losing out on some experiences. Also, what we can learn from this is stop cheating on your spouses. If you don't want to be with somebody, you don't have to cheat. Just break up with them and leave them alone. Why you gotta be cheating on people? And we can't forget, the most important thing is wear a damn condom. The world would be a better place if you would stop passing your bumps and drips around. For real. Well, anyway, I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much for listening to the entire story. What did you guys think about the story? Did you guys like it? Did you enjoy it? Was it a trip? Did it suck? And yes, all this really happened to me. It was actually crazy reliving it and speaking about it. But hey, I just wanted to share it with you guys. Please make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give me that like. And I'll make sure to drop some more stories for you guys. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thanks.